Botrix has correctly joined the channel. Speech Balloon. Hey Legion. Super Chats are now live. Want to support the channel, raise the dead, and get your message noticed? Hit that money bag icon and fuel the necromancy. Every bit helps keep the darkness thriving. Coffin fire.
All right, live stream number 2. We're doing the Path of Exile reveal here in about 8 seconds. And then after that, we'll take another short break and do some more content creation. And then we'll be back for my live stream today.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers from Grinding Gear Games, and welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of what's coming next for Path of Exile 2. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Sun Priest's Incineration rare finisher effect by following the instructions below. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict.
Karui! I have called you here to save our people, to save our way. Over the ages, we have known pain like no other, but we endured, and we became mighty. Now, outsiders dishonor our shores, and we have stood by, doing nothing. Hear my voice, ancestors! Show us your strength! Show us the true way! I understand. Be still. I open your heart. The true Lokura Makoi will rise.
Are you guys tired of winning yet? Are you tired of winning? Is this the Druid? Please tell me the Druid class so they can stop whining. Will be revealed.
Now, as you can see, there's a lot going on, and we have a lot to reveal today. We'll start by going over Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline. But that's not all. There's also 3 new interlude acts to get you to endgame, which means we're removing Cruel Difficulty too. After that, we'll be going through the massive changes to characters. I'm super excited to show you how I've overhauled the entire support gem system, added new skills, and yes, there are buffs. Next, we'll go over the Rise of the Abyssal, this season's exclusive league mechanic, and talk about the new rewards, crafting systems, areas, and bosses that it adds. After that, it's on to changes we're making to the endgame. Then it's time to talk about items, crafting, and oh yeah, trade. That's going to be a big one. We'll then go over our new supporter packs and finish up with a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile 2's game directors, myself and Mark, your questions from Twitch chat. And after that, at 4 PM Pacific, patch notes. They're not quite complete, but they should give you some nice details to chew on. We've got a lot to cover today, but first, another announcement. When the Third Edict launches on the 29th, we'll be having a free weekend for Path of Exile 2. That's right, Path of Exile 2 will be free for the first time without requiring an early access key. The free weekend will end on September the 1st, so you'll have plenty of time to give the game a try. Alright, let's get started with Act 4. The story continues from the end of Act 3. Doryani has agreed to help you find an ancient weapon that can be used against corruption, the instrument of the Third Edict. The weapon was broken in ages past, but he believes that the pieces may be found in the Karui archipelago, the home of the Karui tribes. You will need to journey to Kingsmarch, hire a ship, and set sail. When you open the map, you can choose to sail anywhere you like. Act 4 is completely non-linear, and you can visit the islands in any order you choose. Will you visit the pristine beaches of Whakapanu Island? The Karui whisper of a curse that afflicts all who travel there. Perhaps it's related to the weapon you seek. Or maybe you will visit the volcanic shores of the Isle of Kin. The Kin have been more restless recently, mining for sulfite and driven by some dark force. Perhaps you will choose to consult with one of the local Karui tribes. Their ancient wisdom could hold clues to finding the Third Edict. No matter where you choose to go, you will fight dangerous beasts, find fabulous treasures, and battle incredible bosses.
A challenger! Come, Yama sees your soul!
There are 8 islands to discover, each teeming with its own flora and fauna. Act 4 contains over 100 new monster types, 16 new areas, 12 new bosses, and plenty of other interesting encounters. There's a huge amount to show, but we're not going to spoil too much here. We want to give you a chance to discover it all for yourself. What happens after Act 4? Well, until now you had to repeat the entire campaign again before you could face the endgame. But after adding Act 4, the game is far too long to make you do that. We needed something else to do in between the end of Act 4 and the endgame. So what else could we do? Add 3 new mini-acts, of course, and we're calling them the Interludes. The Interludes are a set of 3 temporary side stories that will be included in the game until Act 5 is released, that will take you to level 65 where the endgame can begin. The first interlude sends you on a journey back to Ogham. Renly has been leading the efforts to rebuild Ogham Village after the defeat of Count Geonor, but there's a new danger afoot. The nearby town of Holton is surrounded by an impenetrable darkness, and each night their corrupted townfolk emerge to raid the local farmlands. You will discover new areas and new bosses. You'll need to find your way through the darkness, uncover the source of corruption,
Soon you will serve our master.
and defeat it.
Yes, I shall dance with their corpse.
And that's just the first interlude. The second interlude will have you return to the Vasteri Desert, where Asala has been given a sacred duty. When the skies align, the gifting of water requires a chosen Sekima to meet with the Selkari, guardians of the sacred water, but they're nowhere to be found. You will need to track down the Selkari, find those responsible for disrupting the gifting, fight even more new bosses, discover the secrets of the ancient ritual, discover new locations, and ultimately help Asala carry out her sacred duty. Now for Interlude 3. As Royal Thaumaturge of the Vaal, Doryani had plans within plans to save his people from the cataclysm perpetuated by Atzeri's lust for power. One such plan involved sealing a group of willing Vaal deep in a great mountain vault near the home of the Asmeri, deep enough to survive the cataclysm. Even though thousands of years have passed, he believes that their descendants may still live, and may be key to defeating the beast. The journey up the mountain will be dangerous. New foes stand in your way. And the further up the mountain you venture, the colder it will become. Explore caves of ice and enter the vault itself. Who can say what you will find within? The interludes are 6 to 7 areas each and generally include 4 boss fights as well. When you put that together with Act 4, that adds up to 35 new areas in the campaign and 24 new bosses. It's worth making clear that the interludes are temporary. When Act 5 and 6 are added, the interludes will be going away. These are side stories after all, but don't worry, the bosses and areas that make up the interlude are all part of the endgame. We're not just going to throw them away. And with that, we don't need cruel difficulty anymore. We do know that it was a pretty big chore to have to play through the campaign multiple times on each character, and this was a huge reason that the campaign could feel like a bit of a slog when playing through again. But we do also have another new feature to address that particular concern as well. So let's talk about sprinting. In 030, when you hold down the dodge roll button, your character will go into a sprint after they finish the roll. This is available on all character classes, and there's no limitation on how long you can sprint for. The primary purpose of this feature is to make navigating areas faster when out of combat. Because of that, if you do take a hit while sprinting, you'll fall to the ground. The best idea is to use a skill when you see monsters. That'll break you out of the sprint so you can engage with no danger. If you do need to run away from monsters, just hold spacebar. You won't be vulnerable during the roll, and you're faster while sprinting than basically any monster in the game, allowing you to retreat from combat. Sprint is a pretty significant change to POE 2's gameplay. What I like most about it is that we can accelerate the pace of the game for those who want that, without having to compromise on POE 2's more visceral combat systems. Okay, so that's the new extensions to the campaign, but there's a whole giant league to play through as well. I'll leave that to Mark to talk about later. And that's because what I want to talk about now is the new stuff for your characters. And probably one of the biggest new systems here is with the support gems. Now, support gems are one of the most interesting elements to creating a build. They're what enables so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play. But POE 2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design, though, is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build. If you can only use each support gem on one skill, it means that you're encouraged to go all in on that one ability. And we want to encourage you to combo your abilities, something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per character. You can now use as many copies as you like. This should drastically increase the amount of possible builds and increase the amount of skill diversity. There are a lot of potential builds that suffered from the previous restriction. For example, a poison build previously couldn't add poison to more than one skill. They couldn't use stacking poison on more than one skill either. This severely limited your ability to combo with anything outside of the specifically designed poison archetype, but now you can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame, because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use in other skills. You would never speed up killing Palm with martial tempo, when you would much rather use it on your primary skill instead. There are more examples like this all over the place. In addition to that, though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression in the supports as you went through the game. There were only 3 tiers of supports, and many of the most important ones were given out at Tier 1. Also, there were no strict upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you ran out of sockets required quite a lot of thinking. In order to solve these issues, we now also have multiple levels of many supports as you go through the game. For example, double barrel support gives you an extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed. At Tier 2, the penalty gets lowered to 20%. But then at Tier 3, the support gem gets something new. It now reloads automatically when you heavy stun an enemy. In some cases, the highest tiers might work a little differently, and you'll have to decide if you like the upgrade or not, depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed. But then at Tier 3, it changes to a new approach. For each different spell you cast in the last 8 seconds, you get 10% increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells. So that's pretty good for upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our new system, lineage supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for supports. There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful. Like Ratha's Assault. It's an upgraded version of Double Barrel that reloads your skill as you dodge roll, as well as increasing the number of bolts it can hold. But it does mean that it's the only way you can reload the skill now. Now, unlike regular supports, you can't find these through the uncut support gem. Just like unique items, many of these can be found from specific bosses. And there's a ton in the regular drop pool too. Some of them are fairly rare, others fairly common. Some of them are build defining, others are just straight up power upgrades. All in all, there's around 40 lineage supports being added throughout the endgame, so there's a lot of power to find out there. Now, the new support gems are certainly going to open up a lot of builds, but of course we have a huge range of improvements to individual character classes as well. As well as adding new skills, we had a big focus on buffing existing skills so that they can scale well into the endgame. There's a huge amount to cover here, so we're not going to discuss everything. We're just going to quick fire through some of the coolest changes. We wanted to make cold a more useful element on the Ranger, so we've expanded the cold tools available. As well as increasing its range, Escape Shot now creates fragments of ice whenever it hits the ground. These fragments explode after a short time, making the skill better for killing groups of enemies. But not only that, we added an ice fragment support that creates more of them when killing frozen enemies. And a new buff skill called Ice-Tipped Arrows that allows all your arrows to create ice fragments. This already gives Claire to rangers wanting to use ice, but to take further advantage of the ice fragments, Freezing Salvo has been upgraded to shoot additional cold arrows towards every fragment, giving you a nuke-like ability. We've also modified Snipe to consume frozen from enemies, dealing a huge amount more damage, giving you a nice ice single target option. And something you might notice about this is that the bonus is a lot higher against bosses. This is actually a change you'll see throughout the entire game. Since it's a lot harder to freeze a boss, you should get a bigger reward for it. Another theme you'll see throughout the game is making movement feel better. Toxic Growth is a skill that was pretty cool, but a bit annoying to use with the jump that it had. Now Toxic Growth is a range skill, so you can spam it more easily. And we've also added a new poison skill while we were at it, called Toxic Domain. It creates a small area around you that makes all your attacks create toxic growth pustules, but attached to monsters. Another skill that was annoying to use was Electrocuting Arrow. It's now just a regular arrow, making it easier to use. But it also means you can support it with projectile supports. And it now also has Area of Effect, making it a tool for more than just single target, and allowing it to scale into the endgame. We also added a new spirit reservation called Mirage Archer. This is a meta skill that allows you to create shadowy clones of yourself, to use a skill of your choice. Of course, one of the other big problems the Ranger had was survivability. Evasion was the weakest of the three defenses, and we wanted to change that. Currently, evasion doesn't evade all types of hits in the game, so you're still vulnerable to things like slams or unblockable attacks. To make evasion characters more tanky, we're adding a new mechanic called Deflect. Unlike evasion, Deflect works on everything, and if you successfully deflect a hit, you take 40% less damage. Items can now give you a mod that gives you some amount of deflection based on your evasion. And there's a bunch of it available on the passive tree too. Deflection is rolled in addition to evasion, so this is an upgrade for regular hits too. And unlike evasion, there's no maximum chance. You can reach 100% deflect against all hits if you spec into it enough. Of course, this is a buff that helps all Dex characters, so the Mercenary and the Monk, but especially the Huntress, are seeing big defense boosts from this as well. Speaking of defensive mechanics, let's talk about block and parry. Now, one of the big concerns on the release of the Huntress was parry feeling unreliable. One of the big reasons for this is there's a lot of hits that are not blockable, and thus not parryable either. So a huge balance change we're making is that now, everything is blockable, except for specifically unblockable red flash skills that bosses use. This makes parry much more reliable. And not only that, but to make block and parry nicer to use, you now also move faster than before while using these abilities. This is a massive buff to passive block as well, so to counter that we did have to lower the max passive block a bit, but overall you should feel much safer. Fire skills on the warrior were not really cutting the mustard, so we decided we needed to upgrade a bunch of them, but also add some more as well. Let's start with a buff. Volcanic Fissure now branches into multiple fissures, giving it much more clearing potential. We've also added a new skill called Forge Hammer. This skill throws a molten hammer that does a slam at a distance. You can recall the hammer back by using the skill again if you like, but the cooler thing to do is to use a Warcry near it. Using a Warcry makes the hammer explode, making a bunch of volcanic fissures around. Volcanic fissures re-trigger when you slam them, so it's a great skill to make a flaming arena to fight a boss. We also buffed Perfect Strike to have much larger area of effect, and changed Molten Blast to not always force you to move forward. Trust me, it feels a lot better to use now. This skill now has massively boosted chance to ignite monsters as well. And you're going to want to ignite monsters due to a new glory skill called Ancestral Cry. Ancestral Cry charges up with glory by igniting monsters, invoking King Kalm's favor. After you do, Use it to channel Kaum's ancestral power. Every attack will be ancestrally boosted with fire. Your very steps will explode, triggering volcanic fissions.
MD, thank you so much for liking the stream. Thank you. That means a lot.
Shield skills were another area we wanted to improve. Now that we've got sprint, we actually don't need to have a cooldown on shield charge anymore. And now also does more damage the further
It goes a long way.
away
Thank you.
Shield wall got significantly upgraded AoE. Also, you can shield charge right through it to trigger all the walls. We also added a new shield war cry. Fortifying Cry gives you a defensive buff, but it also builds up charge on your shield that empowers your other shield skills. And Magma Barrier now doesn't require timing in order to use. Just wait for your shield to charge up and block. Seismic Cry now stuns enemies that are primed for stun. And we changed the Sunder interaction with Armor Break. It now also gives a Sundered Armor debuff that makes enemies take 40% extra physical damage. Great for bosses. Ancestral Warrior Totem has undergone some pretty significant changes too. We wanted the skill to feel more like using an ultimate, but summoning an ancestor to fight for you was a big deal. So we've changed this totem to require 3 endurance charges to summon, and massively buffed its damage. It also now scales your weapon damage too.
That looks amazing.
Since there's no limit anymore, if you build around generating endurance charges, you can summon an entire forest of totems. In order to make that easier, we added some new sources of endurance charges. There's now a support to make Perfect Strike generate charges, and a support for generating endurance charges from heavy stuns as well. Speaking of totems, we wanted to upgrade the Warbringer. Among the other changes we've made to this class, Answered Call now gives an extra totem, and the spirits have just been generally buffed in many ways. Use it with your limitless ancestral warrior forest to make an army of Karui that would make Tukahama proud. We've also merged the Great Wolf Howl and Warcall.
Robbie, thank you for liking the stream, Robbie. Thank you.
And Encased in Jade no longer removes the Jade when getting hit, making it a much better defense. Next up, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy was always intended to be something that warriors didn't need to care about very much so long as they're in close combat. But unfortunately, that's not currently the case. This was particularly annoying with skills like Bone Shatter, which you certainly don't want to mess with. So we significantly buffed your chance to hit at close ranges when you don't have much accuracy. Warriors shouldn't require any accuracy investment in order to hit with close range attacks now. We also wanted to improve armor. Now, one of the major weaknesses of armor is the inability to defend against elemental damage. In order to mitigate this, we're adding a lot more of the stat that allows your armor to defend against elemental damage. It's now available on items and in a lot more places on the passive tree. One of the most important improvements we've made in 030 is to declunk the action and flow of shooting crossbows. You can now reload crossbows without any movement penalty. But not only that, all skills that can be used while moving now slow you for a shorter amount of time. This change benefits everyone, not just crossbow skills. With both of these changes put together, the run and gun playstyle feels much better. It's hard to explain how important this change is for the feel of the class. The Mercenary is also a good chance to talk about how we're rebalancing to make comboing skills much better. Take Shock, for example. It buffs damage and lasts 4 seconds right now, but that isn't really giving you enough time to take advantage of it. If you're going to add a lightning skill into a build that otherwise wouldn't use one, we need to make mechanics like this much better. So we've increased shock duration on monsters to last 8 seconds. And skills like Plasma Blast, which are intended to be good at shocking enemies, now increase the damage bonus by a lot more. You'll find changes like this all around the game. Chill now lasts 8 seconds, giving you more of a reason to weave in cold damage. Freezing skills are better at freezing. Burning skills need to cause burns that last longer. But making skills like Permafrost Bolts and Incendiary Shot double down on how they're supposed to be used, it makes using them in your build alongside other skills much more likely. We're also making sure to buff specific combos too. The freeze explosions from frag rounds now chain to nearby enemies. And using high velocity rounds with armor break will now fragment the opponent's armor. This causes monsters to take a portion of high velocity rounds.
Oh my god, guys, thank you so much for the follow. That means a lot. Thank you.
So that means following with a shotgun blast.
That means a lot.
Effective.
If you could share the stream, that would be great too.
Now there's a lot more buffs to crossbow skills, but for now I'm just going to talk about the new one we added, the Mortar Cannon. This one lets you socket any grenade skill. and using it will summon a cannon which loads and then fires the grenade you choose. Another issue on the Mercenary were banners. They were just not very good, so we're doing a big upgrade to them. They now last longer, don't disappear when moving out of them, and we removed the Valor mechanic. They now just give a much more consistent and stronger buff, and you can use them when you get enough glory. On Witch, one of the main focuses was making various minion types more useful to use together. Melee minions in particular were just not that great compared to ranged ones. As a starting point, we just straight up removed the requirement for minions to have accuracy. Attack minions now always hit, which makes them way better. Brutes got some good numeric buffs, but we also added a new command skill where they do a war cry that intimidates enemies and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold explosion. We've also changed the Frost Mage's command skill to an ability that adds ice armor to your other minions, adding a layer of defense. And it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker as well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's war cry can detonate them too. Unearth was changed to work on corpses of your dead skeletons, allowing you to summon the minions more easily in boss fights. And they also got a new jump ability, allowing them to get into combat faster. Ray's Spectre was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have. To be honest, we were a little afraid of these when we first balanced them. We've both decreased the spirit cost for a large range of monsters, and have significantly increased Spectre damage too. They should feel a lot more impactful. There's also a lot of new spellcaster weapons with newer cult skills, but I'll just talk about one of them that I thought was particularly cool. The Reaping Staff is actually a wicked scythe that gives you a new ability called Reap. When an enemy is low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly, healing you. It can also inflict critical weakness on enemies too. Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the Witch's Ascendancy classes, but I'll just talk about two of them for now. On the Blood Mage, you were previously required to spend your first points on Sanguimancy, which really was supposed to be the downside for being able to access the powerful abilities on the rest of the class. In order to make picking the Blood Mage a better early option, we've made Sanguimancy free, unlocking the power of the rest of the class immediately. On the Infernalist, the Demon form wasn't something people were really using because you lost your weapon stats while transformed. Well, you no longer do, so it's a much better option now. On the Monk, the Wind skills needed a big upgrade for sure. Staggering Palm can now stack up its duration if you use the skill multiple times in a row, so you can keep the effect of all your skills throwing up wind much more easily. Wind Blast had the purpose of building up to dazing an enemy, but dazing just wasn't worth all that effort. Now it just dazes on hit, meaning a single Wind Blast will make all your skills stun enemies more easily. Following up with Vaulting Impact on a dazed enemy previously did a bunch of stun. Now it allows you to break your enemy's stance. When their stance is broken, following up with a fast attack will do way more damage. A cool build that certain people always enjoyed in POE 1 was hand-to-hand combat, but until now we just didn't have a real way to make it viable. Well, that changes now. The Monk, as a true martial artist, now has the ability to learn the Hollow Palm technique, a keystone that lets you use all quarterstaff skills while unarmed. All quarterstaff attacks now have a special unarmed version, and you get further bonuses to all your attacks from stacking Energy Shield and Evasion on your character. A new keystone we also added to the Monk section of the tree is Walker of the Wilds. This changes Mana Leech to work with elemental damage instead of physical, which is pretty useful for all those elemental attacks the Monk has, but it works well for the Ranger too. Now, one of the least used Ascendancy classes in the game is the Acolyte of Chayula, so we knew we needed to make some changes here. One of the key things we had to do was make the chaos damage that the Acolyte can do much more useful. So we've added a new skill, allowing chaos damage to ignite, shock, chill, and freeze, embracing the elemental prowess of the Monk in a truly chaotic fashion. In addition, he can make all of his chaos damage leech. And we've buffed Into the Breach and Embrace the Darkness by moving the effects of the 4-point nodes into the base skills. He also gains a new notable, Grasp of the Void, which leaves void illusions behind you as you dodge roll. If they're killed, they do massive explosions of darkness, dealing damage to everything in sight. Now let's talk about Sorceress skills. One of the things we wanted to improve on the Sorc is the ability to use multiple elements together more effectively. Now, this might seem small, but one of the things pushing you towards using a single element is debuffs like elemental curses, which lower resistances of a single element. In order to fix that, we're making quite a lot of game-wide changes to these kinds of mechanics to broaden what they apply to. So for example, there's no longer 3 curses for fire, ice, and lightning. Instead, there's just a single curse that buffs all 3 at the same time. And things like Frostbomb, which gave you cold exposure, now give elemental exposure. You can use it to buff any of your other skills. We also wanted to make switching between different weapon sets smoother, so you can use different elemental staves more effectively. To do that, we've removed the weapon switch time, and now happens instantly. This applies game-wide too. Now we didn't just want to stop there. We wanted to add some specific mechanics that work between different elements, and that's where elemental infusions come in. Certain skills can now drop elemental infusions. For example, when a frostbomb explodes, it leaves behind a cold infusion on the ground. After picking it up, you can spend it on one of any number of different skills to transform how they work. Spark will create a nova of cold-infused projectiles. Ice Nova will leave a chilled area on the ground. And we also added a new low-level skill that fires ice shards. Use it with cold infusion though, and the ice shards will explode. Orb of Storms now generates lightning infusions when you cast enough spells near it. And that's all spells, by the way, not just lightning. Once you have one, you could cast a lightning flame wall, which adds both fire and lightning damage to all the projectiles that pass through it. Or power up Ember Fusillade with lightning, which will generate arcs to nearby enemies as each fireball hits. Or maybe go lightning on lightning with arc. This skill is now a projectile, and by infusing it, you can go full Palpatine. Get fire infusions by blowing up monsters with Living Bomb. Then use them with Comet to summon a giant fire meteor from the sky. Or use it with Firestorm, which transforms it from a small area into a much bigger one. Firestorm is unique in that it can be infused by multiple different elements at the same time. Add an ice infusion to rain down ice at the same time as the fire. And add lightning to add deadly strikes from the heavens into the mix. Or use it with all 3 to generate a storm that is truly apocalyptic. Cold Snap has been simply turned into Snap. Previously you could use it to shatter ice, but now it works to detonate all of the different elemental ailments, and makes them leave behind infusions. And just like how you could previously use it on Frostbolt, you can now also use it on Orb of Storms and Solar Orb to detonate those as well, which means you can create many infusions at once. We also have a Spirit Reservation skill, and a support gem to help generate them too. On the passive tree, we've added quite a few new keystones to the Sorceress section. Here are a couple of examples. The Black Flame Covenant keystone converts your fire spells to chaos and causes your ignites to deal chaos damage. Your fire spells and ignites will also turn purple. The Ritual Cadence keystone causes your invocation skills to trigger more times. It makes them trigger periodically over a longer duration instead of one. Great for those auto-bomber builds. Now, in addition to skill changes, we've added a lot more options for the passive tree for each class. Overall, there are more than 100 new notables on the tree, usually around 20 per class, along with smaller clusters as well. Check out the old version, and here's the new version. It's a lot more dense, and there's more interesting nodes than before. Now, we probably can't go through too many of these in the livestream, so I'll just show you one from each class's area of the tree. We tried to be a lot more thematic with the new nodes, so for example, the Molten One's Gift. It lets the benefit of Armor Break apply to your fire damage. Or how about Last Stand, which gives you lots of stats as your situation becomes more and more desperate. A lot of these have themes aligning with Ascendancy classes. Like for the Gemling Legionnaire, for example. You have crystallized immunities, which makes you immune to different status ailments depending on which support gem color you have socketed the most. Another Ascendancy class aligned notable is Sanguimatic Rituals. It allows arcane surges to generate life instead of mana, unlocking that support gem to be used with the Blood Mage Ascendancy. In the Sork area, you'll find these Archon nodes that allow you to convert all of your elemental damage to a specific element. You become a Lightning Archon when you spend enough mana, after which all your skills will be converted to lightning, and you will do extra lightning damage as well. We have ones for cold and fire too, with different triggers. Here's another cool one, Elemental Practitioner gives crit bonuses if you've triggered a skill recently, while also making crits generate more energy for triggers. Or maybe you'd like the Great Boar. It gives you a reason to stack Dexterity to make you tougher, giving a bonus to life and stun threshold. Or the Cunning Fox. It straight up gives you 5% quality to all your gems. Now, another major change is attribute requirements. We felt like players probably had a few too many nodes and attributes and not enough in interesting passives, so we lowered attribute requirements by 25% across the board. That means you'll have more points to spend on interesting notables rather than just needing to allocate more strength, dex, and int. Now, there are way more changes than just these.
Not sure,
Rick.
Top. Not sure.
To show off, but I'd say that's just about enough for now. We're not even half done yet. So I think it's time that we talk about the League, the rise of the Abyssal. And to do that, I'd like to hand things over to Mark.
As you just saw, even though there are major changes to the campaign for this update, we want to make sure that every time you come back for an expansion, each area feels different with something extra going on. It is really important to make sure your experience when returning between expansions is fresh and filled with new content, and the way we did this was through leagues. Every expansion we make has a league, which not only has a fresh economy, but also has new content exclusively available in that league. So, let's delve into the details of what Path of Exile 2's first official league is bringing to the table. The Abyssal are a race that have mastery of forbidden magics and necromancy. They were thought to be extinct, but have merely been biding their time underground. You first encounter signs of the Abyssal in Clairfell, where you discover that during the night, weaker members of the Undead Legion have been attacking the encampment. The townsfolk require your help to investigate where the monsters are coming from and put a stop to their attacks.
Out there, ancient creatures, lurking beneath the surface.
As you proceed through Rayclast, you'll find fissures in the earth connected to larger pits. The monsters normally inhabiting the area are being affected by it, harmed by it even, having their souls eaten to strengthen the Abyssal underground. As you defeat the monsters, the fissure closes and Abyssal emerge, angered by you killing their food. Once all those fissures have been sealed, the pit activates, and more Abyssal pour out. This is where the larger and more dangerous monsters reveal themselves, as hordes of Abyssal spew out from the pit to take your soul. If you kill a magic pack, then magic Abyssal arise. If you kill a rare, then a rare monster will emerge from the pit, having absorbed some or all of its modifiers for itself. This means the monsters emerging will generally be more difficult and more rewarding, as each modifier gives better rewards. If you are able to kill them all, the pit will seal shut. As each pit is closed, it reveals a potential reward. Abyssal troves will rise up out of the pits, allowing you to get some epic loot. Areas often contain many pits, with many fissures, and the amount goes up as you progress through the game, getting more intense. It doesn't stop there. When monster mods are absorbed, they have a chance to become infused with the dark necromancy, transforming them into Abyssal modifiers. For example, you defeat this monster with the Mana Siphoner modifier. Their soul is eaten by the pit, and a rare monster emerges. The Mana Siphoner modifier has transformed into Soul Siphoner, and is now amplified in danger and reward. Abyssal pits also interact with other monsters and mechanics. If you defeat a rogue exile that's near one, it'll be revived as a Lichborn that has multiple Abyssal modifiers. Lichborn exiles even have their own unique jewel they can drop, if you are lucky enough to encounter and kill them. If an Abyss spawns near a boss, killing it will summon a gigantic Giga Larvae creature. Monsters imprisoned in essences near Abyssal pits are affected by the Abyss too. They will come with an additional new essence item that can be used to craft your items. So, that's your bread and butter of the Abyssal League. Kill surface-dwelling monsters, kill the emerging Abyssal, close the fissures, overcome pit encounters, and reap the rewards. There's a lot more to this league, however. As you complete Abysses, you can find ancient pieces of bone, preserved from the remains of fallen Lichborn. These are one of the many rewards for your mission to seal the pits. You can use this on a rare item to imbue it with abyssal magic, adding a special hidden modifier to your item. But how do you reveal it? In Act 2 of the campaign, you'll encounter a new area. This area is overrun by the Abyssal and the Lost Men. After clearing through this area, you'll find the Well of Souls, a giant cavity with a massive vortex of souls swirling beneath you. So how do you reveal the mods on your Abyssal-infused items? Obviously, just throw them in, right? Yes, that's exactly what you do. Before throwing it in, you are given the option of how you want to transform it, in the form of a choice of 3 different modifiers. Once you've chosen your desired mod, throw it in, where it will absorb the power of the souls, and the ominous creature will then retrieve it for you. These modifiers can be ones from the core mod pool, all the way through to specialized modifiers that cannot normally appear on items. During the campaign, you can use it as a way to more easily add useful existing mods, but during the endgame, there is a whole set of new and powerful mods you can add to your items. Like this mod for crossbows that allows you to place an additional ballista totem. Or this one that adds spirit to your staff. Or this one that allows you to generate more combo with your quarterstaff skills. And speaking of endgame, you can also use the system to craft waystones. With a preserved vertebrae fused into your waystones, you can get some new modifiers that push difficulty and rewards to new heights. Here are some examples of those mods. You always get a choice of 3, so you can avoid anything you don't think your character is capable of. With this modifier, the natural inhabitants of the area are all spawned near abysses, and there are up to 9 additional abyssal pits in the area, making it just a full-on abyss ruckus. Or this one, which causes the final abyssal pit in the area to always result in a boss encounter, be it either one underground or one that emerges out. There are dozens of these waystone modifiers in total you can get from this crafting. That covers the new crafting mechanic, so what's left? Well, we talked about how when closing pits you can get abyssal troves, but sometimes when closing an abyss, you'll reveal an underground cavern that leads to the abyssal depths. After jumping into the depths, you'll find an abyssal city, swarming with legions of the undead. When underground, every single rare abyssal enemy will have an abyssal modifier. And at the end of the dungeon, you'll even find a rare with a more powerful Lichborn modifier. Once you're able to defeat this powerful rare, you can also find some nice rewards. Aside from the entire area being valuable due to the abyssal modifiers on the monsters, it has its own specific drops too. One example is a set of lineage supports that can rarely be found in these depths, like Kurgel's Leash. This support empowers both you and your minions when you command them, granting unholy might to you both. Another depths-specific outcome is a set of omen-like items that amplify your abyssal crafting. Additionally, we're adding some new socketables that can drop from the abyssal depths. Take Ulaman's Gaze, which can be socketed into your armor. These are a bit special in that you can only have one equipped at a time, but give some pretty powerful effects. Think of them as almost a unique socketable for your equipment. In the endgame, where you can still find depths, you also start to find a different type of underground chamber. In these areas, you'll find an ancient spire, a device being used by commanders of the abyssal factions to plunge Rayclast into a lightless void. Your goal is simple: kill this commander and destroy the spire. There are 4 bosses in the Abyss League, and there are some pretty cool uniques available from them. An example is this belt, Darkness Enthroned. It has 2 sockets, but hold on, socketables don't work on belts. Well, this belt has a special mod that allows it to count as a different slot for the purpose of socketables. This one, for example, counts as a helmet. I kind of want one that counts as a body armor. I wonder how rare that one is. You can also find this unique jewel, Undying Hate. This jewel transforms part of your passive skill tree into an abyssal version, and has multiple depths. The deeper it goes, the more of your passive tree is affected, allowing you to fulfill your fantasy of becoming part Abyssal Lich. Now, the last thing that Abyssal Commanders can drop is a Finger of the Lich. But what use do you have with a random undead finger? Well, the next time you return to the Well of Souls, with the finger in your inventory, your character will almost feel compelled. To do what, though, you might ask? To jump in. The items you threw in came back more powerful, right? So, what's the worst that could happen? Well, you will just have to find that one out for yourself. Along with the introduction of Act 4 and the interlude, we will be adding 25 new endgame maps. These maps will contain all the new monsters and bosses we're adding, improving variety and giving you opportunities to experience the new boss fights many times. Let's take a look at some examples. Rock Pools is a map where you explore a shallow rocky coastline, surrounded by coral and filled with sirens. At the end is a giant Goblin King boss, ready to eat sulfite and squish you like a bug. Holton is an Ezomite township which has seen better days. Explore and clear the township to find a gothic, Reaper-like boss, with the ability to manipulate storms and fry you with both lightning and wither you with chaos. Given some of the new bosses added are a bit more epic, such as the Act boss and final bosses of each interlude part, it would be a bit of a waste to just use them as regular map bosses. Instead, we'll be adding some new mechanics to the Atlas that use them. These start appearing pretty fast into the endgame and will help bridge the gap until you do your pinnacle bosses. In the desert biome, you can encounter a wild sandstorm. 3 maps around the sandstorm contain a device you must activate. Upon doing this, the sandstorm's magic is disrupted, revealing the map inside and allowing you to access it and find the cause. This presents itself in the form of a boss, similar to the existing Citadel bosses. This boss is a Faradin Swordmaster, who has been blessed with the power of a Time Djinn, allowing him to take his swordsmanship to the next level by replicating himself, maneuvering rapidly, and severing the fabric of time itself with his powerful slashes. In the water biome, you'll encounter a giant maelstrom, where one of the maps surrounding the water biome connects to it, but the connection is obscured. You must run the maps nearby, hoping to find a beacon, which will remove the maelstrom and reveal the connection to that map. Another example is this Vaal vault in the mountain biome. But how do we get inside? Running the adjacent maps to it will yield a key, which you can then use to gain access to this vault. Or, you could just trade for one, I guess. Use the key to dispel the powerful force field surrounding it, leading to the Vaal Elite and their rewards inside. These all contain Uber versions of the Act 4 boss, and the bosses at the end of each part of the interlude. And each have their own exclusive drop pool of new lineage supports, which, as Jonathan spoke about earlier, are powerful support gems that modify your skills in pretty crazy ways. As an example of a lineage support which can come from the Faradin Swordmaster mentioned earlier, we have Guru Khan's Resolve, which causes your critical strikes to fork, but requires some mobility on your part to properly enable. From the boss sealed in the Vaal Vault, we have Paquate's Pact, which supports your war cries, causing them to inflict massive amounts of corrupted blood at the cost of your own life. Additionally, some maps can now spawn summoning circles, a room resembling an Ezomite henge. Activating this henge will spawn bosses. It's as simple as that. We'll also be making changes to how affixes and waystones work, as the current prefixes equals good, suffixes equals bad iteration isn't quite hitting the mark. We tried something new here in Path of Exile 2, but after seeing the feedback we decided we actually liked what we had in Path of Exile 1 more. Like Path of Exile 1, Each affix will now be both difficult and rewarding. Waystone mods now grant an increase to the number of waystones dropped, and an additional specific upside attached to it. This means as you roll your map, they will continue to get more difficult and more rewarding, and allow you to customize the difficulty and rewards of your maps better. For example, the Frostbitten mod, which causes enemies to deal cold damage, also increases the rarity of items dropped as its upside. Whereas the Of Venom suffix modifier, which causes enemies to poison on hit, has the upside of granting increased pack size. Some maps will end up having a lot of rarity, some a lot of pack size, and others will just have a mixture of everything. Due to now having more modifiers granting difficulty, we will of course be reducing the difficulty per modifier to account for this. So, that's your Atlas, maps, and waystones, but what about Breach, Ritual, Pinnacle content, and others of the sort? We're making some changes around this too. The first change is that you'll now be able to invest 2 points into your specific League Atlas trees before having to run the Pinnacle content. There will be a specific objective for each type of content which grants you those points. For example, in the case of Delirium, it's simple. You just need to find and kill one of the bosses in a map, Omniophobia or Kosis. The rest of the points for each content come from the Pinnacle content, but we're making some changes to accessibility here too. Currently, access to most Pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content will now drop splinters, which will not form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the Realm Gate, you can now just bring your splinters. Upon inserting the splinters into the Realm Gate, an interface will appear, allowing you to pick your difficulty, and you'll notice each difficulty has a different entry cost. This means if you want to run easier difficulties, it costs less, which also allows you to run this content much sooner into the endgame. Because these encounters now just require splinters, their corresponding Atlas tree no longer affects the difficulty of them, and has been changed to purely affect the content and maps on the Atlas. The Arbiter of Ash works a bit differently. Instead of requiring splinters, he still needs crisis fragments. We now have only 2 difficulties of the Arbiter. The first, requiring the existing fragments obtained from citadels. The second, Uber Arbiter, requires calamity fragments. These come from citadel bosses also, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points in your boss Atlas tree, ensuring those citadels are at their highest difficulty level. Since we're talking about Pinnacle content, we also felt that the leveling curve in the late game was a bit too steep. We've smoothed this out a bit so that it's easier to get to the mid-90s. We've also added some new in-game unique items. Let's take a look at a couple. Thunderfist is a pair of gloves that grants Crackling Palm, a skill which empowers your unarmed attacks, granting the ability to call down the storms themselves on enemies you hit. Put simply, literally every monster you hit with your unarmed skills will be struck by powerful lightning. Pair this with the aforementioned Hollow Palm technique to embrace your true unarmed prowess in combat. Another unique we're adding is Henekura's Sight. Equip this amulet to be granted the power of the Mother of Death herself. This is reflected by granting you a skill called Foresight. While you have Foresight, your dodge roll no longer avoids hits. But instead, being hit while dodge rolling restores you to full life and makes you unable to die for a brief period of time. You'll notice when this does occur, a copy of your character appears and takes the full damage. This is you seeing that future, as if you hadn't been wearing the amulet. Ultimately, your in-game experience should be more streamlined. With new content to find, you'll be able to invest in your Atlas trees sooner, engage with Pinnacle content faster, have less FOMO running said Pinnacle content, reach higher levels easier, and do all of that while finding many new chase endgame items. Talking about finding items is one thing, but what about crafting them? We've taken a step back and looked at some of our crafting systems to make some notable improvements. Let's start with essences. which suffered from an issue where the regular essences were effectively useless and didn't give players the tools or excitement that a crafting system should provide. To alleviate these concerns, essences are being changed in a few ways. Firstly, they're being changed to function like regals and add specific modifiers with specific values, meaning you know exactly what you're going to get. We found that players were often bottlenecked by regal orbs when crafting in the campaign, so this helps to fill that gap, allowing you to better upgrade your items. For example, this Lesser Essence of Flames, which will be able to add a flat amount of fire damage to your magic martial weapons. Secondly, we're adding many more tiers. That Lesser Essence of Flames, for example, has a regular variant and a greater variant too, adding even more fire damage with each upgrade. The intention of this is so that when you find one early on, you don't worry about holding on to it till later to use on a higher level item. You should feel free to use them as they come to get powerful upgrades during the campaign. Lastly, our highest tier of essences, now called Perfect Essences, will function like a Chaos Orb instead of a Regal. So it will replace one of the modifiers on your rare items with the specified mod. Such as this Perfect Essence of Flames. You'll notice this one doesn't just add flat fire damage like the ones before it. The Perfect Essences often give something a bit different, with some opportunities to be pretty damn powerful. There are many different essences, each with many tiers, covering many of the more core modifiers you'd want on items early on, through to chase specialized ones for endgame. Speaking of endgame, we really wanted to expand our crafting options for late endgame crafting projects. You might have noticed that at endgame, you get way too many transmutes. Wouldn't it be nice if some of those didn't drop, but instead you got something a little more powerful? At higher levels, you can now find Greater Orb of Transmutation and Perfect Orb of Transmutation. These can be used on normal items to upgrade them to magic, ensuring that the modifier generated is of a minimum level. This is similar to how you find higher tier items on the ground, but for crafting. These higher tiers will also exist for Orb of Augmentation, Regal Orb, Exalted Orb, and Chaos Orb, meaning you can get all of the orbs required to take your item from normal rarity to a fully completed rare with guaranteed high tier mods. On top of these new core crafting currencies, we wanted to make sure there are powerful crafting bases to use them on. Now in endgame, you can start to find exceptional items. These are items that drop at normal rarity and are perfect for your from-scratch crafting projects. They can come with extra quality, up to 30%, or an additional socket to use your crafting socketables in. And yes, they can be corrupted for yet another socket. You can also get exceptional unique items. To add even further to your crafting arsenal, we've added a whole suite of new omens to ritual content, and removed some of the more unimpactful ones that weren't being used. Some of the new omens include the Omen of the Ancients, which will cause your next Orb of Chance to not destroy the item, but generate a random unique of the same class. Or the Omen of Sanctification, which is my new favorite. This will cause your next Divine Orb used on a rare item to reroll the values of its modifiers, allowing it to exceed the normal minimum and maximum values, raising the ceiling on the new most powerful rare items in the game. This omen will also cause your item to become sanctified. Sanctified items cannot be crafted, just like corrupted ones, so consider carefully when you use this. Another is the Omen of Chaotic Monsters, which will cause your next Chaos Orb to reroll all modifiers on a Waystone, allowing you to fix your maps if you get some modifiers that are not feasible for your build. Besides these examples, there is a huge variety of new omens for you to discover in your ritual encounters. With the release of Act 4, notably taking place in the Karori Archipelago, you'll be able to now find a new currency item, Henikora's Lock. Henikora, the Karori goddess of death, has the power of foresight, and is able to see many futures, including the outcome of your next craft. So, imbuing her lock onto an item gives you that same power too. For example, you'll know whether or not to use an Exalted Orb on your item, as you will know exactly what the outcome is. So, with all these new crafting improvements, it's safe to say you're going to be making some epic items, and not necessarily just ones for yourself. So given that, it's time to talk about a massive one. Trade. It's finally here. The moment we've all been waiting for. Fully asynchronous trade. Over the years, the way players trade with each other in Path of Exile 1 has morphed from using the forums, through to the in-game chat, all the way through to using the website. These systems, in all their iterations, work for a while, but with each iteration new problems eventually reveal themselves. Be it requiring you to be in your hideout too much instead of out there killing monsters, or never getting responses from people who are either AFK or just can't be bothered. In order to finally solve this, and this has been a long time coming, we're adding a new system that allows you to buy items from other players without requiring the seller to be present. They can continue farming, killing monsters, AFK as they please, and can even be offline. With the introduction of King's March in Act 4, you will encounter Ange, assistant to Rog in the Meridian Free Traders Company. Over the last 2 decades or so, since Path of Exile 1's storyline, Faustus has handed down his knowledge and expertise to Ange, and she is now ready to take over his business. If you have a hideout unlocked already, you can immediately invite her there. If you don't have a hideout yet, you will need to acquire one. You can do this by completing a quest to defeat one of the bosses inhabiting an island in Act 4, allowing you then to take a slice of it for yourself, making it your new home and base of operations. Once invited to your hideout, she will now serve as operating your currency exchange, but also serve as the figurehead in your new trading empire. So, how does this new system work? In the existing trade system, you would list items for sale in premium stash tabs. And then when someone wanted one, you'd have to take it out for yourself and trade it to them. Now, instead of using those, you can give your items to Ange so she can sell them for you. Each item must have a price set. The prices are set using in-game currency items, such as Exalted Orbs or Chaos Orbs. Once a price is set, other players will be able to find the item by searching for it on the trade website. Once a desired item has been found, you can hit a button, which will instantly teleport your character in-game to their hideout. Then, you can immediately purchase the item, and while there, if you want, browse their other goods, in case there's a good deal someone else hasn't yet discovered. You'll notice that as a buyer, on top of the currency the seller set for the price, it also costs gold to purchase an item, as Ange has bills to pay after all. As a seller, you'll immediately receive a notification when an item of yours is sold, and can also see an effect above Ange in your hideout when she has unclaimed currency. Just go talk to her, claim your currency, and continue playing at your leisure. As many people already acquired premium stash tabs for the purpose of the trade system, we wanted to add a way for you to convert your existing tabs to merchants tabs, if you want. You can do that here, on the website, but only if you purchase those tabs before the release of the 3rd edict. To clarify, the existing trade system will remain fully intact, so your premium stash tabs will not lose any of their functionality. We just figured people might want to switch over to this new system. We expect a lot of feedback around this new system and are looking forward to trying it out with you. As we are not able to test internally with an entire, thriving economy, there will certainly be some kinks to work out. Based on how the system goes, we will be adding it to Path of Exile 1 when ready, so any of the tabs you purchase will also be usable there later. Next up, we're going to be talking about our new supporter packs. Today, we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Justice and Trathan Executioner packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. The Justice series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Claim glory after defeating enemies, or inspire your allies by calling down the Banner of Justice portal. The Sphinx Mystic hideout decoration will identify items for you, displaying them as it does so. This ancient creature has been presented with many items over the eons, so has some strong expressions to make on the quality of your wares. Become a true warrior, worthy of delivering the justice of the eternal gods with the Apostle of Justice armor set. This armor set also comes with a matching back attachment containing a set of scales to measure your worth. With the Apostle of Justice finisher effect equipped, the Goddess of Justice herself will appear to decide on a verdict for slain unique enemies. Witness as she decides the fate of your slain foes. Will they ascend to be amongst the gods or be banished to the underworld? The Griffin fledgling pet will be your courageous companion as you journey throughout Rayclast. Take your place in the skies in the Plateau of the Gods hideout. This hideout comes with many different sections for setting up your home or base of operations. In order to travel between them, you simply just need to walk off the edge. Like a true eternal god, you can float between the mountains on the clouds themselves. The Trathan Executioner pack series also contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Trathan Executioner finisher effect is a brutal display of Trathan might, crushing slain unique enemies as if they were bugs beneath your heel. As a Trathan Executioner, you're the perfect master for the ever-hungry carrion raptor pet. It has taken a particular liking to the taste of other pets, and at your command it will swoop down and eviscerate them, proceeding to satisfy its hunger by feeding on their corpse. The nobles of the 4 major Trathan houses had their mercenaries, but if their hired hands became notably irritating, they'd have to call in the Trathan Executioners. You can now embrace their methods and become brutality incarnate with the Cruel Trathan Executioner armor set. The matching Cruel Trathan Executioner cloak will shroud you in scarlet as you crush the skulls of your enemies and leave a trail of blood behind you as you build up a kill streak. Or use the alternate variant to simply put a skeleton on your back. Be bathed in blood as you mutilate monsters with the Cruel Trathan Executioner character effect. The swirling blood increases in volume as your spree of slaughter continues. Both this effect and the cloak use the same kill streak for tracking how much blood is shown. After a long and tiring day of executions, enjoy a relaxing game of dice with the Goblin Gambler's Hideout decoration. They'll definitely be playing fair, right? The Pulverizer map device brings a horrid efficiency to punishing the damned of Trathus. Each map you open will execute the next victims. This map device in its true ruthlessness tracks the total number of monsters killed, your kills per second, and your largest kill streak up to the point of the map being completed. This is then displayed on a leaderboard so you can take a measure of you and your friends' violence at the end of each map. Additionally, any microtransactions from the supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 1. That's enough about cosmetics. Let's get into the Q&A. But firstly, I want to give a huge thank you for your ongoing support. We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. Afterwards, at 11 AM NZ time, or 4 PM Pacific, we'll post Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict's patch notes. With the release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you need for the release. Keep an eye on the news. Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments. We're looking forward to seeing your experiences with Act 4 and its new bosses, fighting the Abyssal, trying new builds, and crafting new items. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready.
Exiles, after a absolutely monumental reveal, we now have a suitably juicy Q&A session for you. Probably like 2 hours or something, so grab a cuppa, grab a snack and settle in. I'm joined once again by Jonathan and Mark to discuss a lot. The patch that had to fix all the things, right?
That was the goal. I mean, we didn't quite get to literally everything, but we certainly managed to do a lot of things that we were very keen to do.
Yeah, you guys were telling me that this was uniquely nerve-wracking for you because I guess it felt like there was a lot of pressure on this one to fix everything.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we've obviously got a lot to prove. We need to make sure that we're like that. Well, put it this way: I wouldn't want people to feel like we that we don't have answers to a lot of the things that people have been unhappy about. So we really tried to do as much as we could in one go to kind of do everything. As I said, didn't get to literally everything, but we got to quite a lot of it, and I'm thinking that people will be a lot happier with this release than they were with the last one.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to see how much was in this one, especially given that you've moved to this kind of like 4 and 2 cycle of. You just feels like you just released the Path of Exile 1 expansion, which also had a lot of pressure on it to be a big one as well.
Yep. So I mean, it's certainly hard. I mean, look, the really hard part is having to make an act at the same time. Like that's a really huge commitment. So I'm certainly going to be happy once we finish the campaign because we're going to be back to normalcy again. But it's a what it does do is it means that there's like a huge amount of content to draw from. There's obviously a huge amount for players who are not necessarily the in-game players as well, because you've got all of the new campaign stuff, so it's like a pretty big deal for all that stuff. But it also meant we could take a bunch of that stuff and move it into the end game too. So the end game kind of sees a big expansion as well. It's been quite a good one.
Yeah, I remember early on we had the process. Actually, we just literally grabbed my whiteboard in my office and we just wrote down every single problem.
Yeah,
and I'd say it's not a strategy we've done to this degree, this methodically before.
Right.
We were like, okay, we have to solve everything on this whiteboard.
Yep. Literally made a tier list up there. Like, this is T1, this is T2.
We actually fully of every problem. And, there were things in there like, performance and things that aren't necessarily the actual, game content.
I mean, the very one at the top of the list was, campaign is a slog, right? Like, that was the one that we were like, we've got to solve that. Things like that were just like, because we're really trying to be honest about, like, here are the real issues.
And the reason it ends up being a bit nerve-wracking is because we had a goal to fix all of it. And we didn't get to fix. We aren't fixing literally everything. We're fixing almost, a lot. And I'm sure a few new problems introduced here and there. However,
obviously, as we're watching Twitch chat, there was a huge amount of stuff about towers. We had a plan; it was on the list. It just unfortunately we couldn't get time to sort it. So that's one of the. It's probably the notable one, I would say.
Yeah, so we'll kind of discuss around your vision and stuff for Endgame soon as well, so that you can give people some reassurance about like where you want to go with that. But we should also mention just the other elephant in the room, or the lack of the elephant in the room, with the druid. No elephant form, but the joke kind of works. So it seemed that druid has been uniquely challenging to get shipped. It's been something you've been working on for a while now, and just getting it right. What has been the challenge with druid and getting it out?
Well, I mean, okay, so we started believing that we were going to have druid in this version. And that was the case for at least 2 months of the 4 months of development that we were that we had here. And obviously, like, a bunch of work had gone on before that as well. But at some point, we realized, like, that we don't want to have the mistake that we effectively had with 020, where like we put a huge amount of effort into the class and then we didn't get time to fix like all of the concerns that people had outside of that, right? Because obviously the same resources go into making a new class as go into balancing the old ones and making all that stuff, right? So if we don't have the balance in like a good place, it kind of feels a bit bad to like be throwing in a class that's kind of effectively disrupting that. So then what that meant was at some point we're like, okay, since we don't believe we can get both the class and all these other balance changes we want to make in at the same time, it's actually better to cut the class and then have the balance changes instead. So that's what we ended up doing. And obviously it was like a really hard thing to cut, because obviously like, you're going to have another one without a class. Like, it feels really terrible.
Yeah,
but we've got the philosophy now of like, we have to make sure that we're in the release month that we say we're going to be in. So therefore something had to go, and unfortunately that was it. But it means we've obviously got a huge head start for when we actually do it next time. And I mean, look, there was so much stuff that was cut, like even as large as it is, like there's like ascendancies and all sorts of stuff that was gonna be there, and we'll get to it. But more important to just make sure that people are happy with the stuff that's in, and make sure all those changes are great, and make sure obviously you've got answers for stuff, right?
I imagine for druid it's it's a big part of it's just the fact that the shape-shifting, getting it looking and feeling right,
no, I mean, it's a huge deal. It's hard. Like, there's so much animation stuff that has to go into making each form feel right. So yeah, like but we'll get there. Like, I don't think we're that far away from it now. So it's just a question of prioritization.
Yeah, it seems like is probably the hardest class of all. Then
might be. Yeah.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
You're getting a bit more ambitious as you go with each
that
class
is true.
too. Which
that
is
is true. Every class is a step up from the last in terms of that. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess on that note, do you have a vision for who's next after Druid, or is it kind of a race between them to see who ends up feeling
well, I've always said that it would be criminal to go into full release without having swords. So that's that's kind of a pretty glaring.
It's a little bit criminal to get this far without.
Yeah, to be honest, it is. Yeah. So I'd say that would be
weird when you think about
it.
It's real weird.
It's real weird.
So that would be an obvious candidate. Is making sure that we've got that.
People can infer from that some sort of duelist or something. Most likely being the sword one. And as you said, the ascendancies are just kind of the same boat as you weren't satisfied with where they were at to be able to get those in. So that's the things you missed, but that's like the list of the things you missed. That and doing something with towers. So now we can talk about kind of what you have done. We'll jump into endgame first, since I know the towers and stuff have been a hot topic for people. So we'll talk about the endgame. This wasn't ostensibly supposed to be an endgame update, from what you were telling me, but it still seems like a pretty big endgame update in the end.
Yeah, I mean, well, part of that is because we obviously get all the content that we produced for the campaign. We get to make all the endgame versions of that.
Yeah.
That obviously adds quite a lot, but we did want to make sure that we weren't just being like, okay, so we're adding a bunch of bosses. Like, we wanted to make sure that the more epic ones that we added to the campaign have some new mechanic for them on the Atlas as well. So that's where we had those various mechanics with, like the sandstorm and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those kind of like Atlas events. And it really does contribute to the feeling of exploration to have more of that stuff. And then, of course, once you've got that, you need to start getting into, okay, well, what rewards is it going to drop? Then we started to think we need a new category of rewards that these things can have. And that's, we started to think about the lineage supports and that kind of stuff. So it just ended up kind of adding up to quite a bit in the end. But it isn't like kind of like the big end game change that we wanted to do. Like, we had a design for that, but we just kind of haven't quite got to it. So but it still ends up being quite a lot. And one of the big things that it also, I think, will help bridge is the kind of mid-end game part, like that's still a problem that we want to improve, but it adds quite a lot there, because you're seeing that stuff on the Atlas a bit earlier.
What's the problem there as you identify it?
I mean, you've got this issue where effectively, and we are doing some stuff to address this, but effectively you've got like the pinnacles at the end, and you've got obviously when you start you've got a bunch of content, but it doesn't feel like there's those kind of mid-end game goals that you can easily achieve. That's kind of the issue that we're trying to solve.
And just a lack of direction, right?
Right.
There's not enough like really guiding you. Like, the narrative kind of falls apart there, right? Because it's just like open world, and you want a bit more of telling you where to go, what to do, have those goals where you're like, I want to do this next and this next, as opposed to like, I could do this or this or this. It's nice to have those, but it's nice to also have the things kind of directing you as to like, this is exactly what I want to do. The boss I want to get to. So there's kind of just a big gap there. We want to add a whole bunch of stuff in the middle there. We have a huge plan, but again, it's like, we need to you got this working on a campaign, you've got working on the end game, and you've got all these, like, how do you juggle all of these things? It is brutally difficult, and you end up having to think. So I would expect, next expansion to be way more end game centric in terms of fixing all of this, because it was on the whiteboard.
But we did do some stuff with what we had. So like that splinter change, I think, is going to be quite a big one. Like, it doesn't look like much from what we showed, but what it does mean is that you've got pinnacle fights earlier in your in the experience, and of course you've got the thing where we're making it make more sense with regard to the difficulty, the access to the different difficulties, by having it so that it's cheaper to get to the lower tier ones. So that helps quite a lot, and I think that'll improve things quite a lot even just from that. So yeah,
and
like,
of course you got the league now in endgame as well.
And of course there's a league there too.
The Wisps were Wisps, sure, wasn't really a league. It's kind of just like, wasn't
not a full-fledged
not what we've done before. And a lot of people in POE 2 may not really even know what a league is. I mean, we kind of had it with Dawn of the Hunt, but I mean, having Abyss in every single area, there are abyssal icons you can find on the map. You can't add them because they are in every area, the Abyss. So, and you have, different the waystone crafting and stuff like that. So there's a lot of endgame just added by the league's existence as well.
Plus a lot more combination of the league mechanic with other mechanics as well, which is something that I'm always keen for with leagues, is like have a bit more interaction.
Yeah, so, you were telling me that you had specifically made it so that Abyss would have specific interactions with basically everything else.
For sure.
Like if a rogue exile's standing there, you get a special boss based on the rogue exile. So that's a rather interesting extra combination stuff there. It is interesting because this is a league mechanic. It's in every zone. It's guaranteed. That's part of a league mechanic. But does this also have like Atlas tree integration in the way that it would later on as it becomes like a core element?
No, not the way that's kind of handled is through some of the waystone crafting.
Yeah. Okay.
We, depending when the league ends, we obviously do the whole, again, more for people who maybe don't know what a league is and how we handle this stuff in POE 1. I'll over-explain it a little bit. But yeah, generally we review the state of it at the end. We see what changes we want to make. Sometimes we add it to the core game immediately, sometimes later. And then we add it to the tree and decide how we want to invest into all the different things. But we try and have the meta progression, so to speak, of a league within the leagues itself and not connected to the core tree. Because you could have a separate tree. It is a thing you could do. But in this case, it comes in the form of the waystone crafting.
You did an experiment with that recently in Path of Exile 1, doing that in a league, and you didn't exactly like the result.
Bit different because it's not a separate tree, and that was during Necropolis, yes, and it felt like because it's in every area, you have to take it.
Yes, exactly.
So that didn't work. We're not going to repeat that mistake. It could be a separate tree, but we just did it through the waystone crafting stuff instead, and you can invest in the Abyss and juice the Abyss that way. And
I mean, we'll see how we fold it all in as we go into the 040, though. Like, that'll be an interesting one.
All right. Well, one of the kind of like, I guess, endgame issues that I've identified in the past was kind of how the Atlas trees worked and progressed and what they afforded. And it felt very top-heavy. Like, you had to beat the boss to get points to just scale.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the lack of mid-game stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's changed now, though. Like, the league mechanics don't scale difficulty of bosses at all. They're just about what the content is in maps.
Yeah, right? And you get the points way earlier. So, in fact, you even...
Some of them, we made some changes to that, actually, as well, since last night. And thus it wasn't in the live stream accurately. It was talking about how you have to complete specific objectives like killing the Delirium boss and whatnot to get your points. It's actually just now you follow the quest line, and there's a point in where you get the tablet, which is after you find the league and you kill the, just do a Delirium, you successfully go back and get a tablet. You're also going to get the first 2 points there. Now I wanted to change it so that you can get like... if we have 8 points, you get 4 points before the pinnacles and 4 points from the pinnacles. Right now it's 2 and 6. We're still looking at this just because we made a change last night. There's a good chance we might end up, adapting this a little bit more. So it's even, the first 2 points come even sooner and even more obviously. Like, you don't have to RNG into finding a boss in order to get those first 2 points now, which was mentioned there. No longer going to be the case.
But we just want to really make sure we're smoothing that progression through, getting that stuff earlier, all that sort of stuff.
So the other thing, was you've got this kind of world map. It seems to be exploration focused. The recent updates you did in Daughter of the Hunt actually, I felt were a big step forwards in that regard. There was a lot more exploration with the new unique maps, and even towers. I felt like when you're using them as an exploration feature, work quite well. Like they leapfrog you to your next. You see that next unique map over the hills, and that's like a cool motivator that pulls you through, and that helps with that mid game issue you were talking about. Is that kind of the goal? Is to make this like really exploration focused?
It's certainly something that I really love, and the more things you add to the Atlas, the more it feels like you're finding things. But yeah, so we definitely appreciate the concern with towers being that you've got this tension between having to turtle in one location versus explore.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we need to look into addressing. But I don't want to kind of like talk explicitly about exactly what we're going to do here, just because there's like obviously a lot in flux there still. But it's something that we understand the problem, I would say. I would understand that there's an issue, and so we will be addressing that a bit later.
Yes, the brand name of towers seems somewhat marred currently. Like it seems like almost no matter what you do with them, there's going to be some sort of maybe just delete towers because we have the bad association with it.
That is a concern, but I suspect that we'll still want to keep them at least for just vision. Like even if we remove the mechanic and do other stuff, like we'll just keep them there. So I still think it's fun to just find a tower just to get a circle of vision around it. So I don't think that's the part that people are unhappy about with them. So therefore it'd be fine to keep that and move like other power sources and other things that you can do somewhere else.
And I even like the empowering the maps because that is an element of control, which is another thing people.
Well, I mean, I still want something that does that. I just think that it needs to work differently than how it works.
I guess the issue seems to come down to, from what I see, and maybe chat might have other things that they mention about their issues with towers, but the issue as I see it is about that feeling that you still need to be stacking tower mechanics on top of other stuff, and if you're not kind of bringing all those things together, then it feels like you're wasting time.
My fundamental issue with them is the way that you know that something sucks before you even run it, and that's always bad.
Yeah.
Like effectively, it's like, okay, like if you're running maps that don't have a tower around them, you're like, okay, well I know this is bad, or and so I feel bad because like I just have to get to the next tower, and then like when you've done one tower, but you know that 2 tower overlapping is a thing, then you're like, okay, well I feel bad running a 1 tower overlap thing when I know that 2 tower stuff is a thing as well. So there's just this problem of like, you know that it sucks beforehand, and I think that's never a good thing. Like it's actually the opposite of the action RPG philosophy of like, the reason you have random drops is because like, you know, any monster could be the one that drops the next thing.
Exactly.
And if you don't have that, then it's like you feel bad for playing the content because you know it's not the best already. So you need that like random element more. So there needs to be some adjustment to make that better.
Yeah. Do you think that's like bringing up what the base map experience can be in terms of its upper potential, like adding more interesting confluence of variants?
I mean, look, I always like more interesting combinations of stuff to happen, but I don't necessarily think that the core problem is like lack of ability to juice things. Like I think the core problem is to do with the fact that like you don't, like, you know when it already sucks, as I said. Like, it's just kind of like that thing there. So we need to sort of like, there would need to be some approach to solving the, making it more controllable, like you know, more deterministic in some way, like, you know, just something along those lines, so that you can, so that you don't have this feeling of like, because of, you know, because of a thing I can already see that sucks, that this experience is going to be worse than what I'm hoping for.
So, somewhat related to this, another thing I see brought up all the time is being able to kind of choose what map you're doing, and just being able to exert more elements of control. I saw a post in chat just there that was like the idea of being able to kind of erect a tower where you want it, rather. Like, is this element of like being able to choose your maps a little bit more, or have a bit more influence on what's happening?
So I think having control over what content is there is good, but I don't know that I want to lose the fact that you still have the Atlas fundamentally where you like the actual map areas you get are random, and part of the reason for that is that it gives us a lot of opportunities to do interesting things with you know, like different maps can have different things that they drop and other stuff like that. Like there's a lot of that sort of stuff that's like quite nice. Like you can actually have a unique map be way more powerful if like it's kind of, you don't know exactly when you'll encounter it. So that kind of stuff is quite nice, and we want to do a lot more as well on the Atlas, like just more stuff to find. Like when we get to 040, I really want it to be that, like, you know, you really feel like there's just cool stuff in every map that you might be finding that's like you know, that's way more interesting. And as I said, that stuff, the problem is if you have full control over literally being able to run the same map every single time, like the same like base area, it means that you don't have the ability to say, okay, well this map can randomly have this thing that's just like really awesome that, you know, always drops a unique or something like that, because then you're just going to run that map over and over and over. So I still like some ability to have to find the good stuff in the Atlas, but we just need more control over what mechanics you can spawn there and that kind of stuff, and like not having the experience of like, if I didn't get this exact overlap, then I have this bad experience.
And that's where exploration actually comes from as well, is having some element of not having that control as well. So maybe it is the case more of just juicing up that exploration aspect of it even more. Anyway, that's what it already felt like a big improvement with that last one, and we're getting the new maps and the new mechanics and things scattered in the zones as well. So it seems like there's a fair bit more going on.
The main point, like, we did what we could, 100%. And you know, 040 expect a lot more improvements there. But again, we focus more on everything else. There's a, you know, an insane amount of content there. You know, it's we wish Towers was in that list, but it will be. Don't worry. These things are coming. We're aware of the problems. We are aware, like 100%. You know, it was expected when we got to that section to see a bunch of.
And I think a lot of people are going to be getting a chance to experience some stuff they didn't experience because it came later in last league, and maybe they had tapped out before then. So there's a good bit of extra stuff to explore there, maybe with this one. We'll loop back around to Endgame if people have more questions that they post and that we pull from the chat. But we'll move on to the Act 4 and the interludes, because that's a pretty big thing. Obviously, getting rid of Cruel was a priority. You wanted to do that as soon as possible. There's been this problem that you were laboring over for many months about how to do that, how to add Act 4 without having to add the rest of the acts all at once, or do some weird thing.
Yeah.
Well, you've come up with making more acts to solve the problem instead of
So there was certainly some skepticism when I first proposed this about like how can we possibly do that? But basically, the main thing there was that so the interludes are not exactly the same as an act in terms of like each one of them is like a straight line, like you're going from here to here. There's no different. There's no complexity around the plot or anything. It's just like a single goal of like someone's telling you to do this, go deal with it. There's bosses along the way. There's new areas along the way, but all of that stuff we can use in in-game as well. So that means we're not kind of wasting any of the arts. The only thing we're really wasting is like a kind of like a little bit of like storyline structure around it. But as I said, it's not nearly the same level of like narrative structure as what you get in like a full act. And that's something that and ultimately what we realize is to get from the end of Act 4 to the end game level, all you need is like 20 areas roughly to kind of to bridge that gap. And so that means that I was like, you know what, like with 20 areas, I reckon we can do it if we're like, we're using a few mechanics from maps, we're taking some, we're doing a lot of art reuse, that kind of stuff. Like we can find a way to make something pretty quick, and it won't necessarily hold up for like years and years, but it will certainly be good enough for just like for a relatively short period of time. And by the time you get to that point anyway, like you're usually pretty fast as a character. You're like rushing through just to get to end game. So I think that that'll end up being like pretty damn good for the time being. Plus new bosses, new stuff to experience. Like in my opinion, it was a no-brainer to do it compared to some weird thing like having to repeat Act 1 and 2 again or something weird like that. Like that just wouldn't have been good. And we really wanted to get rid of Crawl. I mean, like we never wanted Crawl to exist, right? It existed as a compromise. So being able to get rid of it is obviously something we were very, very keen to do.
There was something you get to the Act 1 Crawl and you're like, I've know all this content, you're ultra powerful, and that's a little bit feel good, and then you're like, doing all this again. It's just like a little bit like just you can do it. At that point you're like, just get me to end game, like whereas when you're playing through the new acts, like it feels, well, with Act 4 and the interlude, it feels just a lot more natural and still fun, and you're discovering stuff, and it's not that just like, I just did this, like for, at least for fast players as well, they're going to be like, oh my god, I just did this like a few hours ago. It's like just too short of a time where but one thing about Act 4 and the interlude, by the way, which I think is really cool, which is very different, and something you don't really appreciate until you play, is you get to Act 4 and you're like, okay, where do I go? Well, I have many places I can pick. I mean, Jonathan was talking about how their kind of interludes are kind of straight lines, but there's three of them.
But there's three of them. You can do them in any order.
There's a choice immediately there, right?
You can do those in any order.
You can do them in any order.
You can do them in any order. When you complete one or partially complete one, it levels up the other two. They always stay, ahead, and they bridge the gaps. You can do them in whatever order you want.
It'll be interesting to see the speedrunning strategies, because like there's different bonuses available.
Like the spirit draft comes from one.
Yeah. Okay.
Where another might be more passive point heavy, and another might be more permanent bonus heavy, and another, like, there's going to be all kinds of crazy stuff going on there. So you go in Act 4 where you've got full freedom of like choice of which island you want to sail to, and then you go into the interlude and you're like, which part would serve me best? And maybe the answer is do a couple areas of this part and then swap to another and do that one, and then like who knows? Which is fine, because again, as you progress through them and defeat the bosses, the other ones will level up and keep up with the level. So you can do half of each and then do the half of each again. You can do an area of each, and then,
That's wild. I didn't realize the interludes were sandboxy like that, because I was planning on asking about how the fact that Act 4 is like a sandbox for like the great portion of it there. And that's going to be super interesting from like racing and speedrunning perspective as to what people take. But also that does seem like it might help with the campaign slog, the repetitiveness of it, if you can kind of do things in a different order each time. Is there some good reasons to do it in different orders as well? Like you mentioned, like differences in rewards, differences in challenges too, I imagine, for different builds.
Yeah, for sure. So, like the reward thing is like probably the main reason you'd change the order, depending on what's going to work best for your character right now. So yeah, each one has got stuff that like we're taking all the different fixed bonuses. I think that actually the fixed bonuses are different a little bit now, aren't they, than the way that they were when they were in Crawl? Did you change what stats they were?
Yeah.
I thought you did.
The passive point number is the same.
Yeah.
The spirit is the same, but the other bonuses, we've kept like, we'll still have the resistances that you got before. but some of the other bonuses from, like, for example, crawls, the snake in Act 3, I can't remember the name of these areas. We have internal names, the old snake chamber. The reward from that will be slightly different because not all 3 of those options are available, and they're available in different ways. Some of it might be, some of it might not be, and some of it will be in Act 4, some of it might be in the interlude, you know. So it's kind of mix and match all over the place, but there's some pretty cool stuff in the interludes that, you know, that you've obviously got your permanent bonuses, you've got your skill points, you've got just like which bosses do I want to do first or last. That's all nice, but you have a little other things subtle. You know, like the first area of one of them, I'm gonna be as spoiler light as possible here, has a wandering vendor that sells, you know, guaranteed rare caster gear, and you can go and be like, I'm gonna go there, check that if I'm a caster, and then I'll go to the other 2 acts because that might have like a straight up weapon upgrade. And then there's another act that sells a whole bunch of greater runes, and so you might be like, I need some runes, I'm going to go there, find that vendor, get some runes, and then go to another. And then one of them has, and you're going to have to find this for yourself, one of them has a nameless seer in it, and so go for it, find that. And, I'm not going to tell you which.
So do you know in advance some of these rewards so that you can make this decision? Like maybe not those kind of secret-y ones, but...
I think it doesn't. Does it say it on the? Does it show it to you on the world map?
You generally see the icons on the world map up to the point your character and the NPCs could reasonably know about.
Yeah. Okay.
So it depends on the act a little bit. In some cases, it's like no humans have been there, so you can't know until you've opened it, and then it will, or until you have been told about it or know about it or advanced the quest, and now you see all the icons. So. Some yes, some not, and
Maybe a bit of a discovery process.
But like, look, it's gonna players are gonna share information pretty damn quickly. But yeah, it's actually quite fun having all this different choice and different axes, and we haven't had this level of like, sure, you've got Path of Exile 1 Act 2's go left or go right, and you got a little bit of that in like Act 8, but you don't. Yeah, get this much like parallel things going on like this in a kind of interesting way. So it'll be. I suspect it'll actually last a little bit longer than we anticipate, given how, you know, we had to put this kind of 3-part thing together so quickly.
Last a bit longer in terms of like players finding it fresh and interesting.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Okay, good.
The all 3 interludes kind of appear on one world map, so you kind of got 3 parallel tracks you can see on one map.
Cool.
So yeah, that's how that works.
It's cool.
Decision paralysis is going to set in. Where do I go?
I think a lot of people will just pick one just because it's the first one.
Yeah,
probably, I bet that'll be the most common
You'll
choice.
see stats on that, I'm sure. It's 60% pick rate for the first option.
Yeah, probably.
Left to right's most likely.
That makes sense.
The order of the islands in Act 4 a little bit less predictable.
Yeah.
You know, one of those islands, like, you know, there's four permanent bonuses kind of going on in one area kind of thing. It's like a, you know, because...
Go there first.
I'm not going to tell you which ones, but
okay, I'll have to figure that one out, eh?
Someone will do it, figure it out.
Make the progression guides. But I like the idea that it could be different for different builds too. That would be very cool if that ends up being the outcome, because that will keep things fresh long term. There's a good reason to do it differently and doesn't just get kind of immediately solved. So Act 4 was planned to have a new way of ascending, but that wasn't mentioned here, so it's not quite ready yet.
Didn't quite get time for it. It'll be coming a bit later. But you can there's still a quest to go to the place where that is happening. But and we added like a kind of another reward there, you know, just for the time being. But yeah, later on there'll be that. The amount of work required to make that trial just unfortunately wasn't quite compatible with making all of the other stuff we made. Probably if we hadn't made the interlude, we would have been able to do it. But I think the interlude was more important just to get rid of Cruel. So we ended up making that decision. But we'll get to it.
Thank goodness. I'm like so stoked Cruel's gone.
If it's what most of us imagine it's going to be, I can imagine where a lot of that work comes in. So hopefully you guys, is it something that you'd like to get ready for next league then, it sounds like?
Well, I don't want to promise anything because at this point we're in the mode of like, we'll cut stuff if we need to make the release happen. So I wouldn't want to promise anything, but you know, that would be nice. We'll just have to see.
I guess the other question then is, do you think it'll be like different enough and appealing to people who don't necessarily want to ascend the other ways?
Well, it's certainly different than the other ones by a very significant margin. So I think that'll be interesting.
And what's the vision for how ascendancy works long term then? So is it the idea that you ascend once in Act 2 once, and then again in Act 3, and then again in Act 4?
I mean, you will be able to do it that way, but if you want to do other, I mean, yeah, that's a way to do it. But if you want to, just if you like a certain trial better, doing it that way is also fine too.
It's just interesting because there's like not as much of a gap as there usually is between those first 6 months that way. Like it's quite rapid fire. So and then it would be a big gap until the end game, and you do your choice of fourth one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we see that as fine. Like you kind of want to get your build locked in to some degree by the time you get to that sort of level.
I kind of like it. It's just different to how it's been done in the past before, right? Where we had, whereas like right at end game you did that third one. So that's interesting stuff. So a big part of this obviously is then continuing the campaign slog kind of discussion was just the speed of the campaign, how that tied in with difficulty, zone sizes and things like that. You guys did a whole bunch of big changes a couple of weeks into the last league where you reduced zone sizes.
So we did a bit of that. That's one of those things that's a bit hard to see exactly until you've played it a couple of times. So I like, for example, right now, like the first time you play through Act 4, I doubt you'll be worried about zone size. Second time, then it might then start to realize like what places are too big and what places aren't. So there'll probably be a little bit of adjustment to that even as we do the first couple of patches in 030 as well. Just because, like as I said, it's actually a bit hard to appreciate until you've kind of played it a few times. But the sprint helps a lot. Like sprint is a big deal as far as like changing how the game feels in this regard. So if you're fast and you know how to use it well and that kind of stuff, you can motor quite a lot more than you were. It'll be interesting to sort of see how how many people are using that all the time versus how many people are kind of just using it all the time. You have, well, yeah, but the thing is, you're an experienced POE player, right? Like you're gonna be. But
like,
that.
There's a fun risk reward to using it that way, though. Like, if you are just using it to traverse or like backtrack or something because you go the wrong way or something like that, then it's pretty cruisy and it works well for that. But it also is a very powerful like combat tool. You can use it like a boss is doing something, you can get further away than you could before.
For boss stuff, you can, although it is dangerous, right? Like,
I mean, if you screw it up, then you
yeah. But I think the thing that I find kind of interesting about it as well is that like you can skip monsters now more easily, and that means that if you are overpowered due to getting a good item drop or something like that, you can kind of like motor through a couple of areas a bit more, like sort of then catch up to the point where you sort of feel about right as far as the difficulty, and then keep going from there, like more specifically. So you've got that kind of tool at your disposal. Not something I'd expect like new players to do, or like players who kind of don't want to engage with that stuff. But if you're talking about like like the person who's playing through the campaign the fifth time, certainly that's an option that you've got that can kind of speed you through a little bit faster. So that's something as well that it kind of does, just because you are faster than basically everything. So you can skip past them if you want.
We're a bit of like good players, like knowledge players knew how to move a lot quicker. There's a bunch of skills, you get animation cancelling, you got shield charge.
It's true. The speedrunners already have a way, but like no one really wants, like, obviously you don't want to be doing that all the time, right? Like unless you're like really dedicated to speedrunning. So.
Niche, unintuitive and whatnot. So like, there's a simpler way to now, close the gap between the players who knew all of that and the ones who didn't. And which is great. And maybe a lot of those players are still using all of those tools even on top of this, and that's fine.
I actually wonder if like the sprinting is faster than like the shield charge, dodge roll, animation cancel shenanigans.
Haven't exactly done a race. I think it's close. I'm pretty sure it's relatively close though.
Yeah, the difference there.
I know there's some passives in the deck side of the tree for like slightly increasing your speed while sprinting and a few other different things while sprinting, like increasing your evasion while sprinting. And so, there's some of that going on as well, that maybe when you speak into all that, you have more of an advantage over those other skills. We'll see.
Actually buffed dodge roll a bit for the sprint too. Like you can turn a bit better. For longer during the dodge roll.
You can. So that one was, man, I'll tell you what. So this is kind of inside baseball stuff, but sprint was like way harder to implement than you might expect. Like it seems like, you just add a speed buff, but like getting it to be smooth and like feel right, and like all of the stuff around like the turning at the end and like all that stuff, that was really, really hard to do. Like it was like there was like a programmer for a very long time just working on sprint issues. Like holy crap. So yeah, like it's one of those things that like every little imperfection of it, so you do it so often, needs to be ironed out.
I'm looking forward to stacking move speed and dodge roll distance in Sanctums and using sprint. I use sprint in the Sanctum and when I was testing earlier, and it's so fun doing some of the things with sprint. It's like we're like mega long dodge rolls into sprinting is gonna so fast.
Yeah, I mean we've in general just improved mobility. We've improved, and even outside of that, it's like talking about sprint, slog, fast. Like there's more to it. There's obviously dodge rolling has improved. The mercenary like slow while reloading, but also something like Jonathan and I both just randomly did one day, just logged in on live. We played mercenary and we were both just like,
what happened?
What did we do? What has gone on here?
Well, I believe
this feels terrible.
It was the 0-0 change that related to like contact points or something. There was something like that I think broke it. Because the thing is, it wasn't actually feeling like how it felt before we released.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh crap, we need to fix this. Something went wrong drastically there. That one really improved it. But we also made a change where you're a little bit faster coming out of when you're using a skill while moving.
Yeah,
you're a little bit faster coming out on all classes, so that actually affects the ranger and the sork as well a little bit. It's not like at first it seems quite subtle, like but when you play it side by side, it actually makes quite a difference, even though it's a relatively subtle change. Like it worked as well. And then you've got things like with the block being faster, like you're just overall more mobile, with a lot of the stuff. Like I think it's helped a lot. But the nice thing is like we still didn't have to compromise on like making sure the combat still was right. So that's obviously been like a big worry, especially because there's so many other buffs and things for other character classes. Like there is definitely a concern that we've like overcooked, gone too far, like things are like things are going to be too easy, and I'm a bit worried about it, but I think it should be okay. We just have to. You
mentioned like the way you've designed this, not meaning you didn't have to compromise on like combat and that, and that was a big hesitance for you. Like you really wanted combat to be not optional in the past. You were talking about before,
for sure.
And things like that. So why does it feel like the way you designed this lets you not compromise on that vision?
Because ultimately, the actual combat itself still works after trying it. Like. And generally speaking, like even though I may not necessarily agree with something, I'm still willing to try these things. So we tried it; it works. That's really what it comes down to, right? So that as long as that's the case, then then I'm cool with it. I just want to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where we're just it's all just like. Even during the campaign, it's just one button, don't have to worry about anything, like there's no challenge anywhere, like that kind of stuff, because I just find that boring. I just don't enjoy it at all. Like I feel like you need to have some level of like actually having to think once in a while, during a boss fight or something like that. So there just has to be a little bit of that left over. Sometimes it can be the situation where
this was a good compromise, like 100%. It again, he spoke about how long it took for this programmer to work through it, let alone there's heaps of iterations with these kind of things, trying to keep things feel grounded, kinetic, realistic, that kind of stuff. So you're not just like, and animation wise as well, there's a whole bunch. So, when you're taking a chance on a thing like that and, it feels like a compromise and you're uneasy about it, I'm glad we did pull the trigger on this one and give it a go, because sometimes it is like knowing how much resources this is going to take. If this fails, it's a massive waste.
Because there was another one that was like hugely contentious, which was removing the limit of one per support gem. Was something that took a bit of convincing to even get people to want to try out. Like that was definitely a worry. Like the concern there is just that isn't it just going to be that everyone's running the 5 same supports on every single thing? But I was kind of like the amount of. I think what we're losing over this is much worse than what we were gaining. Like it's something really important, and so I actually now that we've done that, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it's really, really good change, and that one is, in my opinion, the most important change we're making in 030. I mean, obviously you got a bunch of content, but like in terms of like what single thing is going to affect gameplay the most, like in terms of character builds and like build variety, that change is a huge one. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what people can do.
I was skeptical when you showed me this change, because I was definitely in the camp of defending the decision of the one support limit for the logic of it making you think about how you build each skill differently, not just building every skill for damage, but rather like, okay, which of these damage dealing skills am I going to make more utility or do something else instead? But playing around with it feels like it kind of just lets you use it on 2 skills, like something like Fist of War.
Yeah,
and that's just a really big improvement. Like that's a lot more fun having 2 Fist of War skills than one. But like the skill design is nuanced enough and the supports themselves are nuanced enough that you do still seem like you end up with a lot of variety.
Yeah. It definitely works. Like, it's funny because in the end, it feels like the concern that we had was more theoretical than it actually was real, and that's why it's really important to actually try these things. Like, and I would say that if the supports and skills were designed like how POE 1 was, then you totally would have ended up in exactly the place that we were worried about.
Right, yeah.
But because there's a lot more going on with the way the skills, or just like there's a lot more thought being put into like the exact ways that skills interact in POE 2, you kind of end up being fine, and it just ends up being better. So I'm really glad we tried that one because it's super important.
Yeah, and it seems like lineage supports take over the role of this one gem a bit more.
They do. So basically, right at the end, you've got the thing where you can only have one of each lineage support per character, but that's kind of like none of those are like okay. So you know. Something like multiple projectiles or martial tempo, like these things are super important to kind of make skills even viable at endgame, whereas the lineage supports don't have that same thing. So we effectively get to keep a little bit of that like interesting decision stuff, but only right at the end when you're kind of at the top end and you're thinking about like hyper optimizing specific stuff or like with interesting mechanics. So we still get to retain a little bit of that there.
It's definitely a huge buff though, like this change. Like I've been playing Warrior and I almost feel like saying the new Warrior because it's not any one specific thing. Like the support gem change, the sprinting change, the faster while blocking, being able to block everything, it was way more impactful than I expected.
Weapon swap,
instant
weapon swap is huge.
That's like it's the sum of all these small individual things. And honestly, it was quite hard to design the live stream what we were showing for this reason because it's like it kind of ended up being just like a huge scatter shot of like all sorts of little things, and it's sort of hard to appreciate the sum of it all like adding up to a much better experience. But I mean, obviously, there's like really big things like you've got the infusion stuff on the Sork, which is like like radically, visibly, obviously changing the class. But it's like when I'm making a case for like why is the Warrior better, it's kind of like you got a few new skills, you got like a few different mechanics, but like together it just kind of comes into something that's like way better than it was.
I've spent the better part of 2 days trying to put my finger on what it is exactly that is making that, because you were asking me like whether I'm worried that the Warrior is a bit too strong. And I'm like, I'm definitely a lot stronger, but I'm trying to figure out what it is exactly, and it's like a bit that, a bit this.
Everything.
Everything. Definitely feels like way more fluid, faster, smoother, chunkier all at the same time, because I've got more Fist of War skills going off. We like the instant weapon swap thing is huge as well. Like that seems like a pretty minor change, but all of a sudden you're not thinking about like there's no reason to not.
Right. There's no reason removing all the reasons why people wouldn't use combos is exactly the focus that we had for a lot of the stuff, right? It's like, what is preventing someone doing a combo here? What can we do to fix it? So you've got like the shock change where that's longer. You've got like the change to chill and that kind of stuff. And there was a whole thing with, we never even talked about Ignite because there kind of wasn't room for it, but Ignite has got a whole different thing where that it does now, where there's like every time you fail to ignite, it builds up flammability. That means your next ignite is more likely. So there's like that. There's like a bunch of changes just all through like the places, just these little things that tweak stuff. One of the ones I know is actually really big is the thing with the curse and the what do you call them? The thing that lowers resistances. What the hell? Exposure. Yeah. So exposures, right? Like it seems so tiny. Like, oh, let's make it so that you don't have individual exposures for different elements. But it's like it actually changes the gameplay so significantly, because the moment that there's something that's going to add like 30% more damage in the case that it was before, that you don't have access to if you're going to use cross element. It's like you're never going to use cross element, right? You're never going to do it. So it's like really, really important to just remove every single barrier that's getting there, because
we merged we merged cast on shock, ignite, and freeze into single.
We did.
So
there's no more cast on shock anymore. It's cast on ailment for that reason as well, right? Exactly, right? So literally we're like, let's find every single reason that's going to stop you from wanting to be able to use multi-element builds and actually try to improve that, right?
And guess what? You can still just play one element if you want.
Yeah, you can, of course, right? but yet now if you're doing multi-element, there's just no reason anymore not to.
I was so stoked looking at what you were doing with the elementals, because it feels for the first time it actually is like an elementalist. Like there is mixing of the elements. It's cool, because that's a fundamental game design thing with action RPGs, is that it always at some point makes sense to focus in on one very specific thing because of scaling. And but it seems like gone a long way towards solving that issue.
Well, I hope so, because we really tried to fix every single case we could see. Now, there might be still some more, like you'll find there's some random mechanic that only works on one thing, and then people pick that, and we're like, okay, we have to find and make sure that there's something that's going to attract you to every element and play it. Yeah, I mean, look, part of the upgrades to the individual ailments also really helps, because it's giving you another reason. Like, it isn't just that you've removed the things that were preventing you from, like, you want to both have I'm not specializing you because this mechanic works across different elements, but also you want to have like this element has something that you're going to want to use with other elements, right? So like buffing shock, for example, we're like, okay, like, is there enough of a reason to weave lightning into a fire build, right? There wasn't enough of a reason. So by making shock better, it's like, well, then now there is a reason to use two things, but you also want the burn and you also might want the chill, and, you know, like making sure that all that stuff is powerful enough to actually tempt you to actually do it.
Because like 8-second shock, and you even mentioned bigger magnitude shocks.
A number of the skills have a bunch of shock effect on it.
So effectively, if a skill is supposed to be for shocking, then that skill will have magnitude on it, because the idea is that, like, you know, we really want to make sure that, you know, it actually works. But so that kind of stuff, it's the same with the fire skills that are intended for burning as well. Like if something's intended for burning, it's going to have some kind of duration or something like that. So it's like you want to use that one, then you want to switch to something else while that's burning away and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I always want to do that sort of thing, but you feel a bit silly because, like,
it's just not enough. It just wasn't doing enough.
Yeah, you should just like use your main skill instead.
Yeah,
you waste
exactly.
Time.
But you know, like, even like, once again, you wrap back in the support changes where it's like, okay, like, why would I want to use this other mechanic when I can't do this as fast, or I can't do it as powerful as I could have been doing on something else that I've all in on. Like, it's like that as well was contributing. It's like the whole lot was just all, you know, a bit of a mess in that way.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Ignite thing. I did want to clarify because I saw some questions about it in the chat. It builds up now. So, like, if you don't Ignite, you get 50% of the Ignite, and then the next failed Ignite will...
It's called flammability, since we no longer have the curse.
Right.
And as you build up more flammability on an enemy, the probability of an ignite occurring goes higher and higher and higher, and once the flammability is full, the ignite is deterministic. If you miss an ignite, you at least contribute towards the next ignite being more likely, and eventually it is inevitable.
But one of the other amazing things we got, which was huge from our perspective, is that the way that ground effects work now for the fire is that it has to build to 100% flammability, and then it sets them on fire, which means that if you use a level 1 flame wall, it doesn't ignite shit anymore really easily. So that means we can actually add mechanics that trigger off ignites and do all that sort of stuff without it being a disaster.
You don't have to worry about people being full degenerates with it.
Exactly. So if you're using a high level flame wall, it'll set on fire real quick. But if you real quick. But if you're using a low level one, then it takes forever, so you won't do it anymore.
Yeah, so it's finally a good solve for that, because that'd be
I know it's been a bit of a disaster for a long time. But so now we can have ignite triggers and more supports around that and that kind of thing. And
let's be more liberal with the power you can give out to that sort of thing. And just the consistency has been a pain for any Ignite builds for a while now. So that's just going to be actually consistent now.
Yeah.
So that's really good news. And I saw that freeze was getting a lot better too. The same idea of like any freeze skill.
So the freeze skill, for that one, I believe we didn't change the sort of base freeze balance exactly. It was more that freezing skills just have more freeze going on.
Yep.
And then there was also the other change, which I guess we didn't even cover really, which is that anything that consumes... we'd use the word poise, but basically what that means is that anything that's like harder to apply to a boss, if the mechanic is harder to apply to a boss, then we want to increase the reward for doing it on bosses. So then we've got like a extra damage versus unique monsters, like kind of in quite a lot of places and different skills now, because, you know, once again, if you freeze a boss, it's way harder to freeze than it would be a regular monster. We want to make sure that the payoff for that, for utilizing it, is now much more chunky.
And this was substantial enough that you could actually see it in the footage. Like you saw the boss getting chunked from those shots in the footage compared to like the regular attacks.
But there were other ones as well, right? Like, so with the armor break, for example, it's like you weren't really incentivized to consume armor break on bosses. So the way we solved that particular one was like, okay, if you're an armor break consumer, rather than consuming the armor break, we're going to upgrade the armor break to a new state, like a new higher, like a level buff that's going to do something different. So yeah, like in the case you're like, in the case of Sunday, you're like upgrading from plus 20% to plus 40%, but then it also refreshes the duration, and then so effectively you're more incentivized to do this, and then because it actually extends it now. So that's like another thing where you're like, let's actually make this combo work.
The high velocity rounds one is
very good. Yes,
pretty crazy.
It's
so that's
crazy,
it takes your armor break into, I don't remember the name, let's say T2 armor break.
Shattered armor.
But it's then for the next however long the duration is, 5% of the. Think of it like a kind of infinite impale.
Yeah.
5% of the damage dealt by the high velocity rounds is dealt on every single hit for the rest of the duration.
And that means every single pellet of a shotgun is doing a percentage of the high
fragmentation
rounds
rounds is 10 hits.
Yeah.
And then the consumed days on Monk is the exact same thing. So if you do the days vaulting impact, and then you have, if you have staggering palm up and a temper spell and you do whirling assault, you're doing all the whirling assault hits, all the projectile hits from staggering palm, all the temper spell hits, each of which are doing a percentage of the vaulting impacts thing on hit, and you just melt things.
So juicy. I saw Days as like instant application too.
Yes. Well, that one was kind of worthless before, so we're like, let's just make it actually work.
This idea of like buffs that get escalated into tier 2 buffs is like a kind of cool concept.
I like that one. And the other funny thing about it that's like less obvious but really good from our perspective is that it means you can't repeat the combo piece immediately either, because once you've upgraded the armor break, it's extended the armor break, which means that you can't just reapply the armor break immediately again either. You have to do something else. So it actually kind of generates that rotation kind of naturally, which is kind of a nice one.
It's chunkier and it feels like you're not an idiot for doing it.
Right, exactly.
Before it's like, why would I want to remove their broken armor and make them tankier again? It never really made any sense.
That's a good one.
But it also like prevents some of the weird edge case stuff that is a pain for you guys. So huge improvements there. There's a lot to take in with the supports and skill changes and things like that, but it's like with the amount of supports that are getting added now, and now tiers of supports and lineage supports, do you feel like there is a point where it's a bit much for players to like take in? Like,
well, so I've got something. There's some stuff around this that I would like to improve, which is that first of all, we did a full pass on recommendeds to like, because there was a lot of terrible recommendeds right now, and so we did like a full pass on that. So basically, what I'm hoping is that now, at least all the recommendeds are not bad. Like I was kind of trying to really answer the question of like, are these 3 supports the truly best supports that this skill could have, right? And previously we had this extra constraint that kind of screwed this over, which was that because you could only have limit 1, there was always this thing of like, but would you use it on the skill or would you use it on a different skill that we were always kind of working around? Now we can just be like, what are the 3 best options, right? With no other constraints, right? And so that means that like that immediately makes it easier for us. But I think the other issue is that what it was, the whole like, there's too many supports thing, part of it was because since the recommendeds were bad, you kind of had to go to that other screen where you've got all this other stuff. It's like, if you actually rely on the recommendeds to be good, it's like it doesn't, the fact there's a bunch of supports doesn't kind of matter as much.
I remember we had a ranger with the 10 skills, 50 supports, and it was 2 out of 50 were recommended, I think, for the skills they're on.
Man, these discussions go on for like 2-3 hours sometimes.
In-game ranger is that it means that if the player who's following the
hours,
guide that we have given them is not only not being rewarded, they're being punished because we're making them make wrong decisions.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure there'll still be a few that are incorrect on there, but like hopefully it should be way better. And the other thing as well as I'd really like to do is I think that we might want to get into starting to recommend more stuff, or maybe even like recommending stuff based on the previous stuff that you've already done.
That's crazy.
Which might be just get a bit complicated, but I'm kind of I feel like we maybe should start thinking about that.
Sounds like a nightmare to code.
Maybe, but then it's kind of like, or maybe like if you've got this other skill on your build, then this becomes an option, or there's something like that we might have to do, because I think there's more we can do there. But whatever. For now, it's just at least we're like, here's the 3 best shit.
But also the names.
I know.
The names are so much better now.
Yes,
as well.
Right. So we did a pass of like making the names more obvious. Like, because there was a lot of supports that just kind of weren't.
Like search for, there's this thing that does a thing. I don't. What is it called? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. Impossible. Whatever. Google it.
Yeah.
Like, there's something that does an explosion with armor, but what's it called?
Well, that one should be obvious, I think. But
armor explosion.
All right, are y'all finding this useful?
That's what it needs to be like.
No, but I'm pretty sure it is called that now.
Yeah, good.
But
if y'all find it useful, I'll keep it going.
I remember just being like, if I'm struggling with this, so many people must be struggling with this. Like I remember went to build
crate or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it was not the most intuitive of systems for sure. So massive step forward in the UX, the understandability, all of that stuff for sure. I'd say as you play it and as you take it as it comes, it's not overwhelming. it's easy to look at it in this context and go, oh my god, 100 in support and whatever the numbers are, and lineage supports, and oh my god, there's so much going on.
The lineage supports really should be treated more like uniques, so they kind of just go into the big pool of like, you know, stuff that at end game you're kind of like, you know, potentially working on. But I mean, a lot of the lineage support things will end up probably being like, oh, you know, this build guide says, you know, this is the thing to use here, so and you know, and here's the boss you need to farm to get it. So I suspect that, you know, it obviously ends up a lot of that way with uniques a lot of the time. But
there being so many options for this stuff, actually, kind of like, so there's this thing that ever since kind of the internet, you know, we're spoiled, right? We're inherently spoiled for everything. We have the good guides and all that, and there's a lot of fun to that as well. But we obviously lost some of that kind of mystery of your own self-discovery. But I feel like you're almost forcing us back to that age a bit, because there's just too much for guide creators to really cover.
I don't know about that. Like, people will still converge on things.
But even if a guide creator like creates a build, even if it's like quite well optimized, there's usually like a few other options.
Well,
that are
ideally,
almost
yeah.
as
I mean,
optimized,
that's part of the fun, right? Like, you know, over time people come up with more stuff, and ideally, since we're shaking the meta up each league as well, like, you know, there's still new stuff to find. I mean, that's, you know, like, I think that Path of Exile is actually a game that still has that because of the fact that there's enough stuff and there's enough meta changes to actually cause it to be that there's still cool stuff to find that no one's discovered yet. Which is, there's not many games like that really that still
I don't really think I get that as much from POE 1 anymore, but POE 2 is getting that.
I guess so. But I mean, that really just comes down to the amount of meta shake-up that happens, you know?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. For sure. So with the sheer amount of like supports and things, have you taken a look at how we obtain like sockets and get a 6 link, and how hard it is to do that, and how many we get?
So there have been some adjustments. Actually, this is probably a good time to cover a topic that like was probably not obvious in the live stream, which is that we now have a system that allows us to effectively. I don't have a good like way to phrase this really, but it's like, so I'll take the transmutes as an example, right? Okay. So in the live stream, we're like, it's dropping too many transmutes. We want to instead drop these more powerful ones. The way that actually works is that as you get higher level, it specifically takes like some of the juice, if you will, of the transmutes that would have dropped, and then instead drops higher level ones a bit less often. So the kind of the idea is that it's like, you know, we're getting rid of the crap you don't want, and kind of like making higher, like better stuff that you just get less. So good. And we're actually doing.
Dude, shut up! I'm looking at my phone.
That, for example, the way that uncuts now drop as you get into the end game as well works that way. So it's like it effectively turns. You're getting less uncuts, but you're getting more of the high, but they're turning instead into higher level ones, and like that kind of stuff. So like that'll change the game a little bit. Now I don't know if we're going to have that exactly perfectly right in the very first version, but effectively that should mean that you the way it makes that feel is kind of better in terms of getting those upgrades. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not 100% sure of this, but I'm pretty sure Jewelers have also been changed to use that system instead. For the very top one, I think.
You did the change. I wouldn't know.
I think that one's been changed. But there's effectively like so what you get there is we're still trying to make it so that you get enough of the low level currency that you can still do map crafting, because obviously you don't want to burn.
Hell yeah, there's a lot of good shit in this update, bro.
That you won't need to do as many crafts, like just the bulk of the number of crafts you have to do to get decent stuff.
But the thing is, like these discussions, man, they go on for like fucking 3 hours.
I will say that the perfect results are not common.
They do this all the time.
They are quite rare.
To show you all the good stuff, and then they start doing this, and it's
that's much larger than previous stuff because of the way that it works. Are much more controlled by the level. So at the difference between the I level 79, 80 is quite large in terms of the percentage that gets converted. So there's a little bit more going on there. And then I level 81 and 82, like from rares and uniques.
Yeah.
That is even more. So like you kind of there's a little bit more of that going on with that.
But the big thing is Druid didn't make the cut.
You can cube them down
for this update.
You can down cube. You can't up cube. You can down cube. So that's probably not a word we should be using. You can split them apart.
Like if you're an SSF and you're not getting enough of the basic stuff to roll waystones, and you happen to be getting some of the higher tier ones, and you don't need them for your gear, downgrade them.
You're watching what?
And split them into 3 so that you can apply them to your maps, like that's there.
Interesting. Criminal to split a perfect exalting.
Well, no, you wouldn't do that, obviously.
It's more about the greater one going into the other ones.
Yeah, nice. So kind of on the topic of like the sockets and the gems.
The kickoff show to what? Are you talking about to Gamescom?
For like when a player would have like 1 6 link or even multiple or all 6 links.
Dude, be okay. There we go.
Especially with the sport gem.
Oh yeah. I live streamed that.
Necessarily changed that for 6 links too much. For the
You wasn't here, huh?
It's like for the 5.
Yeah, you can see
we did add a few more like specific drops around during the campaign and like a few more things like that to
Mm-hmm.
kind of just make sure we really wanted to make sure that there's a bit less randomness for that part. For the 6 though, it's still kind of like supposed to be the peak, like
You should
top-end stuff.
always
So
watch
it's
my
really the
YouTube
5
channel
that
to
we
give me the
wanna
watch
make a little
hours,
bit,
bro.
As far as like
we
guaranteeing that.
significantly
And the
changed drop
revenue.
rates of these as well in 021.
That is a good point, actually.
Always.
Like, so if you haven't played since then,
Yeah,
it's a bit of
which
a
was a
different
decent time into
Yeah, yeah.
02, the 02X, series, and the drop rates of these did significantly go up.
Yeah.
Because it is worth mentioning, of course, if you didn't play post 021, then you've probably got a very different experience from what the drops are now compared to what they were before then. Like we made a pretty big difference there.
Yeah, the changes that you did over the first few weeks and stuff.
Yeah,
over
yeah,
Dawn
yeah.
and Hunt
So
were pretty
just worth
major.
mentioning that's still a thing, right? Like we still have.
Oh, you
those
watched the one I
changes
did
too. So
today?
If you
Okay.
stop playing after like a week or something in 020, like the item drop stuff changed quite a bit.
Yep. And is it kind of the same thing for like level 20 gems and stuff like that? That's something that's
I'm not.
Yeah, that's a big deal for us, man.
It is supposed to be chase, right? Like getting those high stuff. But one thing that you shouldn't get anymore is the just like spam of crap you don't need as far as the uncuts are concerned.
Well,
Yeah, that's today's earlier. Yeah, that's today's.
During that 02X when we were looking at item drops and everything, I looked into the gems, and yeah, it was okay. So obviously we added that Venter's gamble box, and that was dropping them. And I was like, why does it feel like 90% are coming from that? And we looked into it, and then it was like, oh, these are like only dropping from the way the levels had been set up. It was assuming that the tier 16 maps were 83. Like in POE 1, the highest tier of maps.
That's why they weren't dropping level 20
and
gems.
so the drop levels of drop levels of level 20 gems were like dropping from only the corrupted +1 level areas and all of that, and only from
super restricted.
yeah. And
Right.
so I was like, oh my god, this was just a straight up error.
Early
So
access, okay, it's fine, it's
we
not
went
done
back and we were like, it's in a -3
Oh,
levels
it's
from everything there. What?
That
It
was
picked up.
a 02X change, to be clear. That was already
Yeah.
fixed.
nice.
A bit of a disaster.
It's where E3
But
E3
also,
stopped and it picked up.
inherent
So
items, there
it's
was
the new
another change. So
E3.
speaking of gem
And
levels,
I-
just, like, clicked
in
to
my
mind. We've actually,
opinion, it's better than
What we've
E3.
done is taken all the wand staff skills and whatnot, and we've effectively balanced them. Because the idea is you find your. Like,
I don't know
let's say
who
your
fucked up
volatile
E3, but they made a
wand.
bad decision with that.
You're going to use that for a while, like if you have good affixes, especially in the campaign. So
I
what
met
we've done
Jeff
is
while we was at
effectively balanced them
GameStop.
as if they were like 3 levels higher implicitly. And you can now get up to level 20 gems dropping 20 inherent skills, even on unique items, for the ones that did.
I'm not gonna say I didn't like E3
from the
either.
ground as well. So like those are playing to add to the sorceress and
But
other
they,
classes' arsenals. Those are playing more of a role as well.
Yeah,
And then you
they
can
just
get
messed it
your-
up, man.
With the uniques, it's not. You don't get to a point where they all drop level 20. You get to a point where some are 18, some are 19, some
Yep.
are 20, and so it's like kind of you want the perfect unique with the perfect level 20 gem with the perfect that kind of thing.
Sony is still not at Gamescom though.
Yeah. And so they
So that shows you who the real culprit was, who really screwed up E3.
as well on the wand. And we've added a whole bunch more. I think we ended up adding like 10 or so new wands.
I think it's
and
8.
Something
I think
like
there's
that.
8 new inherent skills, I think was the number.
Quite cool.
Scythe one's pretty
There's
cool.
some quite cool stuff in there as well.
These have been
immediately
reasonably
got the
effective, like, people have
unleashed,
actually
got the
used them.
unleashed staff finally.
Nah,
back in.
Nintendo
There's
always
those
been that
who
way.
We're at the OG.
Nintendo,
on
it was
the
always
second
Sony
Exile
and
con.
Microsoft.
So that's been removed off Chronomaster and a new.
Nintendo always had their own thing. They never was really like that.
There are a bunch of other Ascendancy class changes, by the way, that we didn't cover.
Oh, yeah.
They always had that weird treehouse
All
stuff.
the existing stuff seems to have gotten touched quite a bit.
Yeah.
But especially in like Ranger, Warrior, and Elementals, it seems.
Every class got changes.
Yeah.
I think.
Sweet.
I don't think there's one
big
that we
patch
were
notes
like
coming
some
later
less,
today,
sure, some less than others, but I'm pretty sure every single class got a change.
Yeah. So I think it seemed that you get the access to the level 3 uncut supports pretty quickly. Like it was like Act 3 I found one.
Yeah. So effectively, you get
So
now
those
there's
aren't
effectively a tier per act.
those are rare. Like
no,
yeah, like so because that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, these tier 3 ones.
Yeah, but bear in mind
like
we've sort of
different
rearranged
effects
everything, right? Because what we've got things that level up. So effectively in tier 2, you're often getting things that are level ups from tier 1, and so then we can push a couple of those up to tier 3. But then in tier 3, there's some of them as well. So you kind of it's sort of spread out a little bit more evenly, and the extra levels kind of mean there's more interesting upgrades. And one of the other things I just wanted to mention is there was this, and part of the issue with the supports before is that there was kind of this decision fatigue you had a little bit with them as well.
Yeah,
where, it's like you didn't want to.
I agree with you, man. That was our Super Bowl.
Like, more likely wanted to just all in on the thing.
E3 was the shit.
Having some level ups like that kind of actually just eases that a little bit, where it's like there's a really obvious upgrade sometimes.
I don't know, man.
Sometimes it's just nice to have that.
Gives you a little break.
Yeah.
I really like the new tier per act.
But Gamescom is it though.
Value the fact that no matter what, when you get to that new act, obviously the interlude
exactly.
Kind of
I always did too.
And a bit acts.
I still did.
3 tiers of supports there, but I really like that no matter what, obviously you get to the new act, you start seeing all the new base types, and now you have this new tier of supports, and so every time you get to an act, you're getting just like straight up like, all right, let me just get a bunch of power upgrades straight away.
Gamescom is different though. It's no more of this like this publisher versus this publisher versus that publisher. They pull all the games together on opening night, man, which I like. I like their format better.
Second act, you'll get new. Every part. Yeah, can't remember how that's split. I feel like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and interlude, and then end game for essences. So like, there's a lot of like, you get to Act 4 and you get a new tier, you get a whole bunch.
And then
of
they break off and do the other stuff. But I like this format better.
So on and so forth. It's like just feels really good getting to a new act and getting all the power from it.
We'll talk more on specific archetypes then, but first,
oh my God, they gonna keep going?
Thing that comes up often from Chad and earlier questions I've gotten is like about the overimportance of plus levels across the board for a lot of things, and also the.
Okay, I'm giving this another like 10 minutes, man. I can't, bro.
About where mana costs are at and plus levels.
We have lowered the exponentiality of mana costs like pretty drastically, especially level 20 plus is going down a lot, like an absolute huge.
Again, I like this format better. I like them having all the games on opening night.
Intact.
And then I like how Microsoft is doing it.
The importance of plus
they got a show today and they got a show tomorrow. It lasts longer and they give all the games more of a more burn.
And thus scaled strictly.
I like it this way.
Gem levels and not from your weapon's damage itself. And as a result, what a lot
it's not just one hour show.
Magic weapon with just plus whatever the number is 7 or something.
We've actually.
I prefer it this way. I don't know. Everybody got their own thing, but I prefer it this way.
Around the place.
It's kind of like an example about that. Like,
everything that was flat damage, all those unarmed skills, all the obviously a different hollow palm gives you damage a different way. But with shockwave totem.
Yeah, you don't like change. You like the old school way. I get it.
We just want weapons to matter.
I get it.
And this whole just using a single affixed weapon at the end is.
There's nothing wrong with that though.
Fly. Now that being said, plus gem level still pretty important, and especially in the case of casters. But yeah, the mana costs just got kind of out of control. Manageable in some cases with some builds, with others, nah, not at all. So yeah, that's come down like a lot. I don't have the exact numbers. We were looking at a lot of the models yesterday of what the numbers were. Changing to, and I was like, look, I'm happy with the 21 plus, but there were some changes towards the later campaign that I was like, no, I don't do those, undo that change. So we're fiddling with the numbers a little bit so that the intent was to obviously have it so that
again, I didn't like the whole Microsoft versus Sony versus Nintendo. Who had the best show, who won, all that shit. I didn't like that.
We'll see how it goes, but yeah,
never liked that.
20 plus in particular, way down. It got out of control. Like
I didn't like it.
But I know that
opening night show was hyped. It was good. I like it that way. I like it the way they got it now. Give me all the best games and good games in one night.
Well, and as you can see from something like the new Keystone we added for Leech applying to Elemental.
No,
like
it was console wars. It wasn't competition.
Right side of tree, you can speak into some Leech.
It was just a console war bullshit, which I didn't like. I don't like that.
Just solve your mana problem with Leech almost entirely.
Disagree.
Nice.
You have obviously attackers in general are meant to have cheaper costs and do have cheaper costs. It is something an int character
I didn't like it.
Supposed to have to deal with.
Never was a fan of that.
To at least some degree, and I'd say that is relatively the case most of the time, especially when you start to get gem levels. It's just part
Oh,
of that
come
puzzle
on,
for
man.
those
That's a bad
characters,
analogy.
and
They've been
is
like that for
intended. Now,
years,
it was to
man.
extreme, obviously.
They always been. Madden's been Madden for years.
But, it is
You can't bring up
just
any
get away with not
other-
investing into it at all. I
Any other
generally, when I
game
try and play
that does
live,
it like
try and play
that.
The thing people are playing the least.
That's just the way they are.
So that I'm most equipped to be able to deal with the rebalance of it. So I just played a sorceress for the last league. I actually enjoyed the solving the mana thing, but yes, then once you have your plus, I can't remember all the values, 6 on your wand and 3 on your amulet and all of that stuff, you're just like, oh my, this is insane. And then certain skills just become completely non-viable, and
Yeah, it's just no. It's Madden. It's Madden.
You have, all that. And I was like, I had mana on every single slot, mana
It
regen
is
on every
Madden.
single slot. I had probably a third of my tree in mana, and like my damage wasn't a problem, but I was like, okay, this is just going too far, and then I'm still doing
Just say
far
EA.
less damage than,
You talking about EA?
whatever, some other build that's had to
2K, the minority.
So, missed
That's
the
just
mark
them.
for sure on that one, but it should be a pretty drastic course correction on that front. Yeah.
I like when you actively suffer in game for a smart. Good changes come out of it.
Well, the trade suffering got to a point where it's like, nah, this needs to stop. It got so much worse last league for me. I was like, seriously, just like, I'm so done with the AFK. Just please, can more of you be at your computer? And then it's like, well, we have this plan, we have this system. Let's just bloody get it done, so that we don't have to deal with this ever again. But
let's talk about trade then. It's been a long time coming, much asked for. It feels like we don't have a thing to ask for now. Like, I don't know.
Exactly. Nintendo's always been on their own galaxy. They don't care about the competition. They never did. They're not trying to compete with anybody.
Becomes a problem somehow. So,
I agree with that.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, obviously the intention was to try and fix all the problems that people currently have. This has been a big thorn in our side for a long time as far as issues are concerned. So I'm glad we've finally got something that we're kind of happy with. I'm really hoping it's going to turn out well. Obviously, one of the things you just can't really test.
Yeah.
Because you can do every theory that you want, but when you
Economy
actually
needs to be real.
economy needs to be real for it to actually make sense. So yeah.
And I have been thinking about it nonstop since you've told me that the trade was happening, because it seems like it can have so many follow-on effects. Like, for one, all of a sudden, the amount of available items to purchase is multiplied by a huge amount, like times 4 for the amount of offline players that are now available at least. And then I'm going to list items that I wouldn't have listed before because I couldn't be bothered leaving them up. So that's doubles it again. Like,
Sega needs to come back. Hold on one second. I got a phone call. I'll be right back.
It's like, that's a big thing.
It is, and that's part of the reason why we need the gold costs to kind of offset that, because that will potentially drive down prices in some cases. So you need something that's kind of a barrier so that people aren't like buying things too easily. But at the same time, what I'll say about this is that, so the gold costs are there for that. One of the other big, really important things with the gold costs is it means that it doesn't screw your progression up too much as you're going through the game. So effectively, you've still, as your first, going through your first experience, the prices have a bit of a floor, so that like when you're in like Act 3 or something, you can afford stuff, but you can't necessarily just buy a whole set of gear like out of nowhere, that kind of thing. So that's kind of important. And then the other thing as well is it stops any kind of well, maybe not completely stops, but the hope is that it'll stop botting of high frequency trading, that kind of thing, because that in order to be able to flip items, you would need to run maps to actually get gold, right? Because you can't get any other way. So effectively, what that means is that you can it's going to prevent that kind of thing from being an issue too. So the hope is that this should be a situation where we don't get like catastrophic hyperinflation or something annoying like that. And if we can achieve that, that'll be really good. We did pitch the gold prices on the high end to start with, because we're a bit afraid. If it turns out everything's fine, we can lower them down a little bit, but they'll be a little bit high to start, just because we're a bit afraid, and we don't really want to have to jack them up after they when they were low.
You said this that they were pitched on the high end, but then when I asked you about how much gold it actually costs to buy something, like what amount of gold does it cost in terms of time or maps?
The discussion was that buying a rare should cost you about 1 map worth of gold.
That's seems like nothing to me. That doesn't seem that high. Like,
I mean, it's
you
enough
end up with a lot of gold.
It's a lot for a botter, but it's
well,
not
exactly,
much for
right?
a player,
It's a lot for a
right?
botter. That's the thing. Yeah,
sounds perfect.
A little bit earlier in the game, this a little bit different because you want to make sure that you know, you're not screwing with the progression too much. So you know, it has to be a little bit adjusted. But effectively, yeah, that's kind of the goal. Just to it's enough of a barrier to stop the flips, basically, because you know you still actually
that sounds low enough that the currency cost of the items is more likely to be a.
Well, I mean, that is the part that the players receive, so you'd want that to be something that matters. But yeah, like as I said, the floor shouldn't be too bad. But it's gonna be very interesting to see how it develops. Like, I honestly have no idea really. Like, I don't know whether the prices will be lower or higher on this system versus the old one. Like, I actually don't know whether that's what's going to end up happening there. Like, I've got theories, but it's like there's counterexamples too. Like, it's very interesting to sort of to think about that.
So yeah, normally you have this effect where like prices bottom out for like usable, decent to bad items. Like, they go down to 1 alc. But the problem is then at the same time, people don't want to make those trades, so their minimum price climbs. It goes to like 5x or 5c or whatever. It's like the minimum that they would even leave a map for. So that kind of created a floor before.
But then on the other hand,
kind of gone now.
On the other hand, if you're just filling up all your stash with a bunch of crap, like, you know, that's like, as a seller, you don't necessarily want to do that either. So, you know, like, you've got that element going on.
And this is something I love about this system, is that it's going to give you a very real feedback of how things are selling, because you're going to get in real time those.
A bunch of people are going to turn up in your hideout. If you underprice something, a bunch of people are going to turn up instantly. They're going to be there.
So this is my favorite when we talk. You told me how this works. So people click it, they get transported to your hideout
at the location of the NPC with the box open with the item highlighted. So you can't like troll people by like putting the NPC somewhere far away from the entrance or something like that, which should be otherwise an issue.
But like, you get like really popular items, and you got an active shop. You can have like 20 people in your hideout.
Yeah, you can. So we actually
popular.
So we actually had to do a thing where effectively there's only 24 slots for people who aren't your friends or party members. So effectively, that means that there are some extra slots that are dedicated so that you can't someone can't stop you from being able to map or something just because you had a popular item that people are looking at. So we pre-thought of that one at least. Like, I am sure that there will be other random trolls that people will discover as a way to do this, and we'll have to iron them out. But one we did think of immediately, of course, because it was really obvious, is like, once you've set a price on an item, put it in your stash, there is a cooldown on being able to take it out again, just to give people a chance
you can't be sitting there going, oh my god, too many people are joining. Remove
it again, right? It has to be put in. And I think it's even got a thing where it refreshes the cooldown when someone joins. So that's the kind of thing you need to be thinking about. So once again, I'm sure there'll be exploits or like stupid shit around this that people work out. But you know, we at least thought of the really obvious ones.
It's going to be a really like physical, tangible way to like learn the price of things. Like, because you can put a bunch of stuff there, no one's coming to your hideout. If there's a lot of people standing in your hideout, you know you're probably doing things right.
Right.
But yes, no change of none of that repricing.
The bait and switch is gone, right? Because like, when you put the item in and you price it, you are committing to that price, right? Like, you must sell. You must sell for that. Someone's going to buy that thing, right?
Never again am I going to message someone and be like, I want to buy it, and then they raise it by 5c.
Right.
I still want to buy it.
But
5c again.
On the other hand,
still want to buy it.
On the other hand, you have to actually be careful, right? Like, you could accidentally sell something for real cheap, and nothing's. There's no.
It's a great way to learn.
I know it is, right? It is.
It's a good way to learn.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So it's almost like a bigger fear for doing this, apart from the item acquisition part, which is like the economic side of things, was the losing the player interaction side of things. That was often mentioned, memed about a little bit. But funnily enough, this is actually increasing it more than messaging people.
Yes.
Because they're coming to your hideout. Like, there's going to be that kind of like presence of
they get to check out your kind of like garage sale that you're going on.
I love that.
So also like put your display cases there.
Yeah, exactly.
Put your cool hideout decors and
so
we're going to be adding a new hideout decoration that's effectively a set of security guards. And so people in your party, they'll let you through, and people not in your party, they won't. So you can have a little trading.
Yeah, you can have the VIP area of a hideout. The VIP area where only the people with some class.
It's gonna be funny.
Only people with class are allowed in there.
Oh my god!
So you can sit behind your security, just watching all of them.
There's so much fun stuff you can do with this. I love it. But never before would I have like looked through a seller's like other listings. But now, like, a lot of time I'm just going to go there and buy the highlighted item. But
if they were silly enough to sell it for that cheap, what about their other items?
But even stuff like
the 5 things.
Even stuff like you can see the tab names on the other people, right? I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah,
so you're like getting the nice organization and like colors scheming and everything, right? So that people can,
people's ASCII art.
Yeah. So that'll be a nice one too.
No, I can't wait to look at all the phallus tabs and find out.
Jeez. Okay.
what
No,
I'm doing.
I think we have to add a reporting system for it. Unfortunately.
Yes, you probably should.
Yeah.
I was just excited to log in, just to have that. You wake up in the morning, you're like,
Oh my God, what did I get?
Before work, go run to your
Yeah,
computer,
what
just
currency
quickly
did I
log in,
get while I was
and then you
asleep?
get nothing, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I like the idea of even just like popping into your friends lists.
Yeah,
Like hideouts
set it
are
up.
doing it too, like just browsing what cool items they got.
Yeah.
It's like far more like physically a thing that you can do now. It's like, oh, yeah, it's really exciting. But yeah, there's so much unknown variables there. Like, what is this going to do to the economy and the item acquisition process?
Well,
like,
thankfully,
you can't go back now.
Thankfully though, we are still in the early access economy, right? So even though all the stuff will be kept,
Yeah.
it will be separated from the eventual economy we get at full release. And
Yeah.
also, thankfully, we get to test it on POE 2 before we look at putting it into POE 1. So we get a chance to. Someone's phone calling me. That's not good. Before we get a chance to. Before we have to commit to that for POE 1 and so we can get the balance right, we can get all the details right. But I am almost certain that it'll have to go into POE 1. Like, there's no way people won't.
Oh, that's good to hear.
It'll have to go. But
No,
at least
will.
we'll get a chance to kind of assess the how the economy shakes out and kind of make some adjustments if we need to. Before we have to worry about that.
Looks like there's some extra chat questions about this. So one is a concern about bots sniping instantly with the system. I mean, that's the point, right? Is like,
Ultimately that.
well,
I wouldn't say it's the point, but ultimately yes, it's a thing. But then it already is kind of a thing. Like there's already stuff that honestly goes on with there.
That really changes too much, I guess. Yeah. Because we were talking last night, I think, a fair bit about arbitrage and
right
how this kind of stuff plays out.
The gold is a bit of a deterrent.
The gold is
yes.
the deterrent, right? It'll
Yeah.
stop the bots ideally.
To some degree, for sure.
Yeah, you can only snipe so many items, but you got to put the actual hours in to be able to do that. And often those sorts of bots kind of profit off low margin trades, and low margin trades delete your gold. So
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And
so listen standard to flip.
another interesting note that came up in our earlier discussions about this, it sounded like you didn't really need to make gold costs really high for rare items, because I was like, oh, well, tier 1 uniques cost 1 billion gold. I was like, apparently not.
No, not really, because by the time you get to the high, the top end of things, then that stuff is already the most expensive stuff. You don't really need to have the inflation that kind of the descent of prices that you get that'll happen up there. So you kind of in the end the prices for uniques they don't have to be that extreme.
Yeah.
But what the thing to note though is that the prices are a multiplier per level of what the shop prices are. So we do actually have shop prices for all the uniques now. So if you sell uniques to the vendor, you actually get more gold now than you did before. Just as a side note,
there's going to be some kind of exploration of which golds are like not worth trading but worth a lot of gold. A bit like the dust in POE 1, I imagine.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that the this tab only sells stuff not in the currency exchange.
Yes.
Right. So you can't sell a chaos orb in there.
Would just be awkward
Yeah,
to do. I
yeah,
think.
exactly.
Currency exchange is for fungible, stackables, stuff that isn't modular, and then the rest goes in here. So it should be that every single other tradable item is in here.
So we had the kind of discussion in the past about like whether maps would get somehow made to work with the previous system, but now obviously that can just be done through this, right? Like those sorts of items that are a little bit variable but might otherwise be considered a kind of currency can go there. So if this goes well, do you plan to remove like old systems of trade or anything like that?
I don't think we can, because fundamentally, we have sold premium stash tabs. They had the functionality they had. Removing the old system,
that would be bad.
People bought stuff. We can't delete what they paid for.
And did you mention in the reveal that you can convert them over?
Yeah, we did. So you can convert your existing tabs. If you bought them for the purposes of this, then converting them over is obviously the right thing to do. That's a thing we wanted to make sure.
A lot of those long-term POE 1 players have a seemingly infinite amount of premium tabs, largely for this reason, right? So it certainly wouldn't be right to all of a sudden be like, no, you don't get to use any of that anymore. You can fully just convert them. And that is why it's also just as important to work in POE 1, because your micros are shared, right? You're not gonna...
So there will be a little bit of a time there where if you convert them, of course, the POE 1 doesn't have this tab type, so they won't show up, which is a bit annoying. But once it gets added to POE 1, then they'll work.
Right. Yeah.
We'll try to make sure that doesn't take too long.
There's the question of, will functionality of the trade site be in-game in some capacity?
So that's something that we really want, and we even had a prototype of this.
I saw it.
Yeah. So it's a thing that we are working on, but unfortunately didn't quite make it for 030. There's some stuff we want to do. I am personally still a believer in that the website's going to be a better experience because, like, you know, the typing, like,
Web is
just web stuff is sort of designed for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when you click the button on the website, your character in game still moves. So, like, if that's a thing. But on the other hand, for discoverability for new players and that kind of stuff, it is
And
good
it's
to have
huge
something
for
in game.
console.
And well, here's the thing. I reckon for console, it's still better to use the website because you can use your phone and you can search for stuff on your phone.
I suspect
like
a little
console controller, typing text with the console controller is just fundamentally crap, right? So, like, you know, like typing with a phone is just easier.
Often you don't have to type anything in text in these searches.
It's true,
though,
it's true. But look, we are going to do it. It's just
Yeah.
that, like, it isn't quite
There's
done.
a bit of each to their own as well.
Sure.
A lot of people are very excited about the idea of an in-game one, and
It is a feature that we
it's in
will do.
progress.
It is a feature we will do. We just haven't.
it's in progress and it's close.
Yeah.
It seems wild to me that I can like push a button on my phone and my character goes to someone else's hideout.
Yeah, well, you know, the magic of the internet, I guess.
I'm getting old, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned that like there's more things on the horizon that you would potentially like want to do with this as well, like in-game features of things.
I mean, yeah, like obviously the first question people will have about once you've got in-game trade searching, you know, when's Awaken trade coming, that kind of thing. I mean, look, maybe one day, you know, like it certainly opens the door to it. Like, you know, I wouldn't want to say that it's not going to happen. Like there's stuff that we could do there, but yeah, like there's a lot of UI issues to sort out. There's quite a lot going on with that. Like it's kind of one of those things that I'd look at a bit later. But yes, obviously something people want.
It's all under consideration though, which is
for sure
very cool and very quite a pleasant surprise.
Well, like the goal, it is nice to get to the point of not feeling like to be, you know, I'm sure it's only for some players or whatever, not feeling like you have to use third-party applications and stuff like that. It can, you know, not to say Awaken Trade is dodgy, but there are some that obviously a little bit suspect. People are a bit like, no, I shouldn't have to do this. I don't want to do this. You know, it gets you can get a bit scared about it, and it can be a little bit like, you know, especially when all of a sudden they're asking you to provide information you shouldn't have to be providing them, and you know, that kind of stuff. So getting away from all of that, having it be all nice, secure, done by us and everything is the ideal goal. But you know, one step at a time. You know, this is a big step, but we'll see what's next after we test this out. Let an economy test it for us, get it to POE 1, you know, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll take it. As I said, every trade system reveals its problems. Maybe that's just the next problem. So
another question here is like when you click like secure item or like buy item on the site and it's going to take you to the hideout, it's like, is that locked in and other people can't then click it? Or
no, they multiple,
it
is technically a race, yes. We'll see how that goes. Like I think it should be fine. But yeah, that is just worth understanding.
That's going to be interesting for like those mega deals and see like 10 people loading in all at once trying to grab it. Who can click the fastest? Who loads faster?
Thankfully, the loading time should be a lot better. In this version than they were in the past. We're doing a bunch of engine changes, which I'm hoping is going to go well. Obviously, you know, when you make changes, there can be
worth bringing up stability and performance.
Yeah. So, we've done a pretty big amount of rewrites to the engine this version. You know, we've like the goal is obviously making the game faster. It should be quite a lot faster in terms of frame rate. There's still some kind of one of the load times is definitely a lot faster. There's still some concerns around like shader pop-in type issues, which we're kind of working on at the moment. But ultimately, it should be better, and we've also unlocked a lot more optimization opportunities for the future. So things should be better in this regard, I am hoping, especially for consoles, where you know we've seen a pretty good performance uplift, and you know things are looking pretty good. But yeah, still more to do. But yeah, that's definitely something that we're taking really seriously. And you know, one of the other things that I'm really hoping we don't run into is another stupid operating system bug like we've been having with the damn freezers, right? Like we've made changes that I think will work around those, but fundamentally the Windows 11 scheduler is completely broken. So you know, ultimately we just kind of have to do what we can there.
How fun for you.
Hold on a second.
I know, it's very
hey guys, I'm going to end this stream right now. They just babbling on about stuff. I already know this from looking at their last streams. They're just
hopefully
talking
the
about
the
nonsense.
full OS freeze.
I have a few things to do before I do my live stream today. Let me just end this right now.
sorted out now.
So I can get ready for that, because I still got about an hour and a half of content creation work to do before I even start my live stream. Yeah, Lou, I see a little bit, man. Yeah, I still got a little bit of work to do before I can even start mine today.
They've been working pretty much non-stop on trying to deal
all
with
right,
this problem.
I'll talk to y'all soon.
What we've done is we've actually retired some.
I'll be back in a bit.
Able to be sorted out.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, man, and hanging out with me during this live stream. It was good. A lot of good information here. I'll see y'all soon.
But effectively, as we go into this free weekend we're about to do,
it's huge.
we made sure that
they talks, man. They having POE 2, man, during these live streams, man. They go on and on. They just don't stop, bro.
There's a couple of locations that we couldn't find.
It's the new update for Path of Exile 2 that's coming out. They knew.
There's other options with
yeah.